and we're going live at this moment because
fun.
we're a little bit behind this morning. Hey, internet. Oh, I don't even have you on the screen, though. I can't say anything. Can you reach the keyboard that's over there on the desk? I could just show everybody while you're doing that, and then you're doing that and not me, and maybe together we could say, would you also get up and turn on the overhead light so you're not in the shadows? Hey, internet, Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. That means you've been paid for it. That makes you immortal now, and he's not going to be long anyway in wrapping up this veil of tears. You found Stop the White Noise with Jonathan and Meredith. I'm Jonathan.
And I'm Meredith.
And Stop the White Noise is brought to you by Mad Christianity, madpxm.com. Also brought to you by the Hebron Collegium. Check that out at hebroncollegium.com. New website development underway there for the Hebron, as some people around here call it from time to time.
No, I've even given lessons. If you're gonna say Hebron, it's just Hebron.
That's right.
If you're gonna say the, you have to say collegium.
That's correct.
So
Collegium.
just say Hebron, everybody.
What's a collegium? Do you know what a collegium is? You ever even
it's a
asked
school,
that
right?
question? It is a school.
Because when we met, you worked at the collegium and we stayed at the gymnasium.
Right.
No, there were like two.
It was a
one
collegium
was a dorm.
gymnasium.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, that's what the whole thing was called. And so gymnasium, like we call them gymnasiums, right? Only it doesn't mean gymnasium. It means a place of learning and discipline, I think, originally. And then that turned into the gym for some reason. And then a collegium is a college. It's just a Latin word for college. But the old way a college would be developed was not so much a university system with your state-sponsored and gender studies, blah, blah. But would have been originally a college was a town would kind of sponsor a way for men of aptitude to come together and study.
Oh, really? So a town sponsor.
A town or a duke or whoever wanted to start one, a school.
Oh, okay.
But the idea would be this.
And
You're going to
would
come
be
here.
Associated with that higher learning. So, like, if Socrates started, it would be like, see, look, in my name.
So the academy that starts around Plato, it just literally the academy. It was a grove of trees called academy, and that's where that word comes from. The academy of Plato was just Plato in a grove talking to people, and they showed up and they wanted to follow him and learn from him. So moving a little past that, though, you end up with this early medieval, late Roman idea that 15 guys are all smart and want to study and can do it better together than apart. Right. And so the collegium is really your gathering of professors to some extent with students around them. So the whole reason to call it the Hebron Collegium is because old sounds cool and everyone likes that right now. But also to get away from what college has become for most people and try to press back toward is just a little bit more about discipleship and self-directed learning, but that to be directing yourself in learning, it helps to have mentorship. It helps to have oversight. It helps to have others who are pursuing the same thing. You're going to go further with a group than you are alone in your garage. And so anyway, in Hebron, I mean, just go read about Hebron in the Bible. It is a cool place. Lots of amazing stuff happens there.
You have a lot going on. Do you need
I
some
do
help?
have a lot going on since I want to pour this coffee. And I had a tissue that I was going to use to capture anything that slipped and fell. Can I have another tissue? Thank you. They don't work as good as paper towels, but they will do it in a pinch.
You can do it.
I've messed up so badly before in some places.
Wow.
I think.
You almost got it. There's a little overshot on your pants.
Did it hit my pants?
Mm-hmm.
That's a bummer. Will you hold my coffee cup?
It's a little bit of splatter.
Oh, I see it. Over here?
Yeah.
I was thinking about the big drop that fell right there. All right. We're a little behind this morning, internet. Thank you for bearing with us. And I know my alarm went off because
It did, because it woke me up.
I moved
God be praised.
my iPad, which was my alarm clock, to the side of my hip on the bed to make it easier to hit snooze the next time it went off. Only I never heard it go off again.
Oh.
So I didn't get up till like 8:05.
Oh.
Yeah, I was a little behind.
Oops. And I was out with the dogs.
Yes,
so I didn't.
which I'm very grateful for. I have no problem with that part of the story. Here in collegium.com, Gap Year Bible School for Men. Read the Bible twice in a year. Learn to explore, risk, develop, and challenge yourself in ways you never thought possible, including home management, cooking, philosophy, psychology, and more. New website under development that will hopefully demonstrate all of that with pictures and things on the way. So that's exciting there. And that's probably enough for that for the moment. If you do love Stop the White Noise and or A Brief History of Power and or Mad Christian Mondays and or Saved Podcast and or whatever else is going on around here, subscribestar.com/RevFisk, RevFisk, or patreon.com/RevFisk. These are times when I get it. The money is tight. And so, yeah, well, believe it or not, we got the same reality going on, and you saying thank you for what we do always, it makes the wheels spin in this place. We've had a number of new subscribers jumping up this last week. So thank you to all of you who do subscribe and support us here in Rockford. All right. So good morning. Got some commentary in the side chat already. Oh, thank you for the like as well. I hate YouTube. I hate Google. I hate Facebook. I hate the internet. But if you would like the video, that would be helpful to its algorithms and all that. Just complete. I hate it all. I don't know. I went from being an addict to one of those people who wags their finger about it all the time.
Oh dear.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'd fall off the horse the other side, right?
I don't know if I'm off the horse or if I'm on the horse, though. That's the thing. I'm on the wagon.
It is interesting once you back up away a little bit how you notice it comes up in conversation of other
That's
people
the thing that
quite a
gets
bit.
me so much is all of our
I
talk
follow
is
this
about
person. I follow
nothing.
that person. When I was on Facebook, I saw. Did you see on Facebook? Did you read my post on Facebook? And
I'm thinking about the incessant movie storytelling.
well, that's true. The quoting of movies.
It's
and-
just like all we just talk about is just movie talk. Do you remember this? Did you see that? And it's just kind of like, and it's fine. I mean, I think there's probably worse things that people have had their minds focused on in history. But I feel so liberated from it now.
Right. And that's what I'm trying to bring out is it's not the like, oh, those people are so bad. It's, wow, I don't have that going through my head.
No.
I don't have the worries of people I don't really know jangling around in my own brain. Like my life has suddenly become very close.
Very local.
Right.
I need another tissue. Thank you.
We can trade sides with the tissue box.
Well, no, we never know when Meridith will need a tissue.
But I guess I think it's a little.
I'm just seeing if they show up. There it is.
I think it's part of my heart is saddened by the amount at which we have allowed it to come in to our lives. And instead of just being bitter or critical, I just feel sad that is to a point where, let me see, I'm thinking 5 different thoughts at one time. So pardon me as I process out loud.
That's good.
I'm sad because it's become so important and to a point of like almost out of control importance. You know, like we don't get as inflamed over people not reading the scriptures daily as we do over people not seeing our post on Facebook.
Or again, it just to suggest that we're being manipulated and brainwashed by powers beyond our control and that we're not capable of self-regulating is highly offensive.
Right.
And like that is amazing to me.
So I have a
It's
funny
amazing to
story.
me.
This is my funny story having to do with Facebook and its little branch, Instagram. I went to Instagram because initially, and I've talked about this before on the show. I initially felt like I had a lot more control over what came to me, so I could be very selective over whose input was coming into me. But then since it was connected to Facebook, I could post stuff and people kind of felt like I was still involved in their world, their media world. But anyhow, so this was back a little ways back. They started to put ads in. And then they also started making you follow people, like because of who you were following and who was following you. Suddenly I had to get through a lot more stuff that I hadn't chosen before I could find my people. And so then suddenly ads started coming up where like you could go shopping on Instagram.
Gotta monetize it.
So I bought a bracelet, and it was
Oh.
a very pretty bracelet. It took a really long time to arrive at my door, so I thought I was a little gypped at first. But I like it. I wear it. It's wonderful. And then the yoga pants showed up. And I was like on my little Instagram thinking, I'm going to find out what so-and-so, Joanna Gaines, Pioneer Woman, whatever, what they're doing. And then suddenly this yoga pants ad comes up and it has it displayed in a certain way. I'm like, wow, those are really beautiful yoga pants. I need those yoga pants because if I get those yoga pants, I will look that cool doing my yoga move.
Which everyone's watching you all the time doing yoga, right?
Right?
I mean, alone.
I
before
like
the house
totally
is awake. Yeah.
only do yoga.
And let us
and
emphasize
stretching.
stretching.
I only do stretching in the morning, and sometimes Sweet Rabbit is privy to watch.
That's true. He is. He does enjoy eating the yoga mat.
Aurelius, he loves eating the yoga mat so much that I have foregone the yoga mat. I do not do the yoga mat anymore. Aurelius has been banned from watching me do yoga.
Well, he's not competent to be still.
Some of the motions make him get really excited, and then
Yeah.
he pounces on me, and I don't think it's good for my joints.
No, right.
It's a little too big. His day is coming, though, I think, where it will be an okay adventure. Anyway, these yoga pants.
Did you order him?
I ordered them.
Oh, my goodness, woman.
And it wasn't the first day. Like, no, I went, I saw them, and then I pined for them for like a week, and I couldn't get it out of my mind. So I finally went back.
I hate that feeling.
And I got them. And I was so excited.
Yeah,
And they came in the mail.
not so good.
They're the weirdest pants you've ever seen. They don't even fit tight. They're like, I got the extra long because I looked at the information
Size
for,
chart.
how skinny you are, how tall
Right,
you
right,
are.
right.
And
Teach you. Learn the lesson.
they're tight in weird places and loose in wrong places. And you can't move in them at all. They're like...
How much of our money did you use on
Oh,
these?
and then here's the other part. So it wasn't just... So I did my research. They had full refund, returnable
that's good.
policy.
Unless.
You live outside of Europe.
Yeah, right. Yeah, they're liars. The whole
It
thing's
was
filled with liars, and they're
scam.
manipulators, and they know the power of the image, and which is an idol. And I don't mean it in like you're a sinner kind of way. I mean it in like humans are submissive to pictures. We got a crazy lack of discernment when it comes to pictures. Just like think about that for 5 minutes before you accuse me of calling you a sinner who's going to hell. We have a trouble with it. They manipulate us, and the powers that be, the men who profiteer, have figured this out, and they are using it not only to suck us dry of all of our funding, but to absolutely radicalize and change our culture, that is our history, that is our identity, and turn us into a serfdom, a new medieval slave people who are too stupid to know whether we're men or women, and willing to become eunuchs when we're 8. It's ridiculous.
So,
and it's not a one-to-one. Don't get me wrong. If you're on Instagram, you're not causing this. You're just taking the risk of letting them do it to you. And that is why discovering the freedom of just not having that much on your mind is marvelous. It really is. There was a moment yesterday, because I had quite a bit going on yesterday. But there was a moment yesterday, I think it was about 2:00. Yeah, because I had a small break. I'd done all the errand running and all this, and I had a small break
before another meeting.
Yeah. and so even when I it's crazy. Like even then I'm kind of like, I'm so lazy. I have nothing to do right now. I started self-shaming myself, but it was also like, oh, I can read a book.
Yeah.
I am I'm going to sit here and spend 45 minutes reading a book. And like the number of, or the development of that in me, I think I've always been fairly well read. I've read a lot, even through the movie lifetime that I lived.
You have a philosopher's mind.
I didn't start reading until I was like 18, 19. I mean, I hated reading. And through college, college made me hate reading more. It wasn't like they were assigning stuff that woke my mind up. I did finally read Lord of the Rings when I was in college. And man, that was a best thing I did freshman year.
See, I thought you were practically like
I grew up on a movie
and then weaned off of other things onto it. And so when you required that I read it, I thought you were this season.
Well, I did.
So you
read it
every year.
First off, there were no movies.
After you discovered
there were no movies.
That's true.
Okay. There was The Hobbit cartoon.
Right.
There was The Return of the King cartoon done by the same people that nobody had. And I'd seen it once when I was little, and it's weird that you would do number 3 first. And then there was the Lord of the Rings, like 1970s strange psychedelic, but kind of cool anime thing that happened.
Anime. Okay.
It wasn't anime, but it's closer to anime than cartoons. Like if I say cartoon, it really doesn't, it was weird. They did all the artwork. They were like, they did, real film, and then they drew over the images to get actual motion, and it was interesting. Anyway, so I'd seen that once, but Lord of the Rings I was a Star Wars nut. That's what I was. Nerd. But reading Lord of the Rings, the whole point is reading. I can't get over how reading has gone from being something that I do, or often that I wanted to do, and would do a little bit of, but always feel like I kind of needed to take a break, to where now if I get a moment, it's like, well, I'm gonna sit down and read some more, and to the level where it's getting in the way of my writing. I'm not writing as much because I am reading. It's really weird. It's really weird. I don't want to write. I want to read. Why?
Well, I think sometimes we have, like, our creativity is like a little sack, and you have to fill it.
I think that could be some of
empty.
It could be some of it.
To fill it back up.
For me, I think it's I've placed way too much value on writing. Now that the pressure bubble of having to compete in a attention environment that's the sack that's kind of letting all the air out. And now that I don't have the voice telling me that I have to do this in order to be valuable, okay, I don't care about doing it as much. I think I still want to finish Earth. It's so close.
I hope so.
I mean, there's still a lot of work to do. It's so close. It's good. That's the best part about that story is that I'm reading Brandon Sanderson again, and I continue to read him doing his Robert Jordan crossover right now, and golly, is it wordy and telling me about her dress again, and it's just. Anyway, so I'm very happy with my writing. I feel good about my writing, and I feel that's good to be able to say that. I mean, you might hate it. I don't, internet. That's fine, but you haven't seen it yet. But I don't care. I don't care about finishing it the same way I did, and so I'm like searching for a new way of caring about it. Maybe that's what I'm waiting for, because it used to be such a need. And somehow that need was I need to like have the most books possible so that I have the biggest chance of being great or something. And I guess I'd still like to be great. It'd be nice to have my books read hundreds of years from now, but what does that mean to me? I mean, I'm not going to be here, So like, I don't know. That's the internal struggle. Is like, why?
Yeah.
And when I sit down, then it's like, yeah, but like, Nassim Taleb is like breaking my mind right now and opening up ways to think about what Proverbs says, what Christianity says, but from a purely secularist point of view, so I can like talk about it without having to quote Proverbs and see the overlap. But basically, how wise Proverbs is shown all the more when you realize that statistical mathematical analysis of reality gives you the same results that Proverbs gives you. Like, wow, that's a thing. Reading Jordan Peterson again this week, and picked up, maybe some of you know Jonathan Pageau. I picked up again Matthew Pageau's Creation Cosmology book and started over. Now that I know how to take smart notes well, I can take my notes on purpose. I had a bunch of notes that were sort of just when I was learning to take notes, and now I can take them on purpose and trying to pull ancient cosmology into this whole pile. And then in the back of my head, part of me is like, and what are you going to write as a result of this? And then part of me is like, shut up. Like, stop. Like, it doesn't have to become something. I can just learn. And that is the result, I think, of less input.
Yes.
It is just the result of less input, is that I'm loving learning in a way I never have before. To the level where it could get in the way of doing.
The beauty of stepping back, I believe, is something that's become a little bit more, it's like a cliche now where it's like, be present. What does be present mean? And
Your breath.
think, well, as I've stepped back and realized that being present just means that instead of looking to the next task, I'm looking at this one and taking it in for what it is. Like when I'm walking the dog, it's not, oh, I just want to get this done.
Yeah.
It's, I'm walking the dog.
Yeah.
How does the air feel today? How is he behaving today? How am I feeling? Why do I feel like I want to get it done? What's causing me to feel anxious?
Yeah.
Do I need to be anxious? Or can I just for a minute look off and see the sunrise over the trees and appreciate, like, this is an autumn sunrise and it's going to change by tomorrow because the leaves won't be quite the same. Some will have fallen and some will have changed more colors. And so being present, and this happened yesterday as well. I mean, I guess I've been struggling with it because it's been forefront on my mind. Like, I wanted to scrub our kitchen floor. I didn't think I had enough time to devote to it, to get it done. And so, but I did have 10 minutes. And so I said to myself, you know what? I'm going to just scrub the floor for 10 minutes and come what may, we'll be satisfied with it. And then as soon as I kneeled down to do it, it was like, I better get it done. I better scrub fast. And then it was like, no, let's just think about like all these different things that caused spots to get on the floor. The dog, and what a wonderful dog he is. The rabbit, and what a wonderful rabbit he is.
It's a sweet rabbit.
And
there's no
all
question.
of the traffic, like what a blessing that we have traffic through our home.
Yeah.
And people filling it, coming and going and wanting to come and go. And so instead of like, man, the floor's so dirty and gross and I have to
If
get
only
this done.
nobody lived here, it'd be clean.
Right. So this is my point. Input. So often we're sold this better homes and gardens lifestyle, like at least the women are, where
Men can have their own version.
you have this beautiful house and nobody lives there.
Yeah.
Like nobody's in the pictures.
Yeah. Yeah.
Everything's in its place. There isn't dust. And that's not the kind of home that I desire. So often, it's like, how many books can I get on the bookshelf at the library or at the bookstore or wherever? But it's not about the books, is it? It's about the time, the course you took to get to the book being a result, right?
Yeah, and
Like,
that's one of the things I really like about Talib, which he has his errors. Don't get me wrong. It's not the Gospel of Nassim. His whole 5-book series Incerto, which I've not read all of. I've read one book and then listened to a second book, which I am now reading. The whole thing is effectively him regurgitating what he's interested in. And what he's interested in is clarity.
Okay.
And so, which is cool to watch from book 1, Fooled by Randomness, to book 5, Skin in the Game. He's gotten so much clearer. Like Fooled by Randomness is a great book, but it wanders, I would say. It takes its time to figure out what it's going to say. Skin in the Game, he's like, I'm going to tell you this. I'm telling you this. I'm going to tell you this next. And he just...
But isn't that just so? I mean, broken without flesh.
Yeah, it did happen. The writer craft does
you
shift.
Develop, you change. I mean, time is passing between.
I got a
one book
really
and
great
another.
compliment somewhere this week, though. Someone said they got the audiobook of Broken as their new favorite book. And so
That's fun.
Yeah, so it's good to hear that one still has some wings on it. It still is the bestseller of the
Well, we've been reading since our discussion last week. I decided that it's high time I carve out reading time again with the kiddos and make that a priority. So we started reading Echo.
Is that why that was down there? I saw it down there. I thought maybe one of my kids had decided on their own.
No, they didn't.
It's like, oh, they finally realized their father has written.
They
a book.
love it. It's like honey to gnats. How does that saying go? Honey to flies. I'll start reading and then they will all come in, or it's at bedtime, so some are already in bed reading and their books slowly go down and they're engaged and listening and laughing and comment, oh, Father, he's such a good writer.
Oh, that's sweet.
Yeah, it's fun. It's been a good read. I was reading
How far
it.
are you?
We're only, so we've done the first thing. Is that what it's called?
The 10 important things. First important thing.
First important thing. So
About
important.
being creation.
And then, so we have to start on the third today. So we're not very far, but enjoying it quite a bit. And I was inspired because I thought, as we were talking about that grandmother with her granddaughter last week, whose parents stopped taking her to church, and now she's curious and has a Mormon friend and all these things. I thought, I think Echo would be a good book for that child, but then I didn't know it well enough to really recommend it.
Didn't we recommend it? I thought we did.
No, you recommended the Kingstone Bible.
Oh, well, that's true. It's the actual, almost actual Bible. It's got to be better than Echo.
And then I suppose you did say that like the grandma could read that, read Echo.
And then be equipped by it to give answers and to talk about things.
I have loved just reading it together with the kids though, because I suppose that since I've already read it, it is kind of like a second run through. So maybe reading it by yourself first and then reading it with the child a second time would be good. But I've been excited because I've heard in different contexts pieces of it where I'm like, oh, look at that. That's exactly what it was talking about in the first important thing of being creation. The me has come up a few times in different scenarios where I'm like, oh, huh. And just not in so many words, but definitely the concept.
Right.
Where it's like, oh, I know what that is. I have an ability to say what it is, label it, and interact with it. Anyway.
Explain the me. It's been a while. I think I know what you're talking about. I think I know what I was talking about.
So there's this old man hanging around everybody's neck, and he has a scraggled tooth smile, and he has a dirty white t-shirt. And yeah.
Oh, that's funny.
I feel like his breath smells like something, but I don't know. I mean, it was like the description was hilarious. But he's this old man, and he is essentially your voice in the back of your head that's trying to convince you to do things. You're a sinner. Trying to do things to be God or get to God. And me, capital M, is the one who you want, like the old man is trying to convince you to worship, essentially, or to serve. And it's trying to put ourselves in the place of God.
Yeah, so it's just sort of a reframed view of the old man. The old Adam.
The first important thing about being creation is there is a God and you are not him. And so you have to recognize that you have a desire to be him. And that's labeled me with a capital M.
Yeah. That's one of my favorite things about Luther's insight that book runs with is that all of the 10 Commandments are positive.
Yeah.
And that's easier to see in his small catechism with you shall not murder. What does this mean? You know, fear and love God, that we help, do not hurt nor harm our neighbor, but help. Oh man, it's been a while since I worked on the memorization there. Look at me betraying my lack of Lutheran catechesis memorization.
Well, let's say the beginning the right way first.
Yeah,
we should fear and love God so that we do not hurt or harm our neighbor in his body.
In his body, that's right. But
be of service to him and help him in every physical need.
Pretty close
or
to it.
Support
it's pretty
him.
Close to it. So that idea that to be of service to my neighbor's body is the commandment there. Yeah, support him. So, and then, the insight in Echo is that you are a body, right? That for me to help you by not murdering you means not hurting your body, means you are a body, means I am a body, and that's profound insight. So, but rewinding that to just the you shall have no other gods means there's a God. Right? Like that's the primary idea there. And the reason not to have other gods is because there's a real one. And having the real one is good. Right? And I love that positive spin on all of it, the way it rolls through.
The way that it's funny, the way that you did this in Echo, I appreciated the way that you spent time on explaining that, because I felt like I could send this to that child and be like, yeah, read this first chapter. But I would want a child to have an adult with them, walking them through, because you never know where their comprehension level is, but you spend so much time outlining it that it it was beautifully crafted, but it was also just so thorough. You know, it explains and thick. Opens so much up. And then
it is my large catechism. Like, that is what it is. Right. It's a large catechism.
And then the second important thing about being creation is that God has a name. And that one was where I got it and followed it, but that was one where I felt like, no, this might not be as accessible to the younger mind, because you start talking about the Hebrew and the meaning behind it, which is wonderful, and I loved it. But I wasn't sure if a child or even our children were following it, other than the fact that they know it already. So if it was brand new information, that might have been more
the idea
confusing.
that God is his name is kind of mysterious and overwhelming.
Yeah, but that part was so beautiful too, that even if it were confusing what his name means, like with the YHWH, I think there would be enough there that there would be clarity for the child to walk away with.
Yeah.
I don't know. And does it really matter that a person gets all the points in every paragraph?
Nobody does. Nobody does, ever.
And then there were so many well-chosen call-out Bible verses. Like, sometimes the call-outs drive me crazy. Just a little bit. I will say that in books.
Okay, in books in
you're
general.
reading, and then there's this call-out, and it's a distraction. Like, when do I go and break my attention away to look at the call-out? Oh, I just want to read what the author has to say. And is this call-out a repeat? Like, I quickly try to discern, are we just repeating a sentence?
Yeah, bigger shots of the same text,
But the verses are like, oh man, I love the fact that I know where this is now, or that I have the ability to go back and reference this specific text, because in the context of like talking about God's name or talking about trying to seek after God, they were so poignant, and I loved it.
I really remember spending a lot of time on those call-outs. Not as much as writing the book, but I spent a lot of time on those call-outs and tried very hard to make them like cross-references, so that they're never exactly what I'm talking about, but they're like an angle that takes it another level.
Yeah, it was beautiful. It was just beautifully crafted. So, yay.
Cool.
First 2 chapters.
Well, thanks to Scott Kinnaman at CPH for the editor work that he did on that, and for making sure that the art that I envisioned was there, and for allowing the cover to be white, and for all these things that made that book, I think, what it is. So, yay. So we were talking about inputs and time, and then that got into reading, talking about stopping the white noise. Before we get to questions, I mean, golly, I guess we started late, so we're almost to 10 o'clock already. I want to weigh in on something. Well, 2 things. Let's start with this one though. There was a conversation in the Mad Christian team.
Oh,
okay.
Hello,
a small conversation, but in which the idea of imposter syndrome was talked about, and I kind of want to talk about that a little bit.
Explain that. What do they mean?
Yeah, and maybe not everyone has this, but you see this in our oldest daughter and her artwork all the time.
Oh,
where you basically don't believe in your own talent.
Gotcha.
And it's not like you're humble.
Mm-hmm.
Right. In some way, you're in a self-shaming denial of what you've done. It'd be like if somebody, ran the 100-yard dash and won at the Olympics, and then said, "Well, I was just lucky."
I can empathize with that. Following a recipe and creating the whatever, and people being like, oh my goodness, this is amazing. Well, I didn't write the recipe. I just followed instructions. Like, I can't really take credit. Thanks. I put it together. But no,
you followed
followed the instructions, and not everybody can do that. So yes, you went onto Pinterest and got ideas and then mashed them together.
Yeah.
But not everybody can even copy in a way that looks good.
Yeah. So imposter syndrome then is like you can't accept your own success, and this isn't about how you need to become more proud. It's about how you need to become more objective with what you've done so that you'll do it again. I mean, the idea is that the imposter syndrome works against you doing it. It's like, well, I should quit because I'm really faking this, right? I'm really not the writer that I pretend to be, that kind of thing. So the question with Mad Mondays and, where is its place in the internet world? Let me go ahead and put madpx7.com up while we're talking about what does Mad Mondays do? What does it serve? Why do we have it? Should we have a website? We do. Should we have a paywall? We don't. We're thinking about it. Should there be more writers? Why? There's already news sources. There's already this. There's already that. Everyone does such a better job at this and that and everything else. What's our niche? And do we need a niche? Isn't that arrogant of us to think? I mean, on and on. You can self-shame yourself. You can imposter syndrome yourself from a bunch of different angles. And I just want to talk about that concept a little bit because I think it's really important in that many people do suffer from this. I don't think it's disconnected from all of the inputs that we're getting, honestly. What are you imposing, pretending to be who, right? Well, this mass conglomerate identity of the internet that has taken on like an artificial intelligence persona so that they are like so great. Who am I compared to them? Right. Why would anyone want what I'm doing? For the sake of the internal conversation, because I didn't really respond internally to the group, I'm responding here. The thing I like about Mad Mondays, and I don't write all of Mad Mondays, I write the opening piece to Mad Mondays. The thing that I like about Mad Mondays is I wrote it down even. Do I have it here written down? No, I don't. Yes, I do. It's a cultural diagnostic. It's not just the news. I mean, there's news. There's news there. And we try to highlight the news pieces that are most important to having a worldview that's not deceived by mass formation psychosis. But part of that then is learning to discern, becoming not a culture warrior. That sounds so lame actually at this point, but become aware that there is a culture war taking place and learning how to spot the tools of the enemy so that you are not duped out of your crown. Right. And I get so much value from reading it every week because it brings, it congeals a bunch of other things into one place with a very, very solidified Christian worldview. And wink, wink, Lutheran, okay? Like I don't have to say Lutheran for it to be Lutheran, okay? So a very solidified Christian worldview that is standing firm. And so, and yet imposter syndrome rises up and says, who am I? What am I doing? And then this will connect to the next thing to talk about. But I want a little more of your thoughts about imposter syndrome, if you have any, and like how you've helped our daughter particularly deal with it, where you found it in her self-doubt.
Honestly, I think one way to combat it is to look at the praise that you have received, to just kind of take an inventory, step back and think about what people have said over the years, over the days, over the months, over the projects. Our daughter has been, she has been artistic since she was 3 months old. and
how do you know that?
I didn't know that not all 3-month-olds will sit and hold a pen and use it.
Oh, really? I guess I
No.
knew that.
I've tried with
The other ones?
multiple children,
Yeah.
and she had this desire to put the pen to the paper. And most of the time, it's put the pen or the crayon in the mouth.
Yeah,
and that's
right. Right. Well, it does taste good. There's nothing like some fresh crayon, let me
And
tell you.
she didn't. But I didn't realize that that was unique until, I'd experienced more children. Like, I have a picture of our second, and she's painting, and the paper is almost clean, but her face has paint all over it.
That kid
And
has a
she is
way.
having so much fun.
Yeah.
She's so happy in the picture. And then I'm sorry. I'm having
You're
a
doing great.
relationship with my microphone this morning.
No
I
one
just
would have
keep
noticed
bumping
if you.
it.
Nope, no one even noticed. I'm making way more noise over here with my schnoz, my
And
congestion.
Then our third child, she just liked to eat things, everything. Yeah, to a point where one time we found her in the pantry. She's teeny tiny little girl, maybe 18 months old. But I almost think she was littler.
so
Right?
cute at
She
that
was
size.
so tiny. Her eyes were so moonbeam eyeballs is what
yeah.
I called her. She's in the pantry. Somehow she had found or gotten into, and this is like, she's like a hound dog for this type of stuff. Sticky, sweet candy.
Yeah, right. She is like a hound dog.
She found this
can find it
package of
anywhere.
it and knew she wasn't supposed to have it.
That's right.
So
Glued
took
her
the
mouth
whole
shut.
package and shoved it in her mouth at one time. It was like fruit snacks. Or
Yeah.
one of those gummy
Back
treat
when we
things.
were foolish enough to have them in the house. Yeah.
And I find her and I'm like, are you okay? Shaking her head, yes.
With the mouth
What
shut.
do you have in your mouth? Shaking her head, no. And then, can you open your mouth? Shaking her head, no. She glued her mouth shut
Yeah.
with gummy treats.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway,
It's great.
so she puts everything in her mouth. And then I don't know, having a son is a completely different experience. He didn't even want to sit still long enough to hold the
So
crayon.
let's pull back to imposter syndrome then.
Imposter syndrome it's tough because as a creative person, you think you should be original. And that's what I was explaining with regards to my recipes. It's like, well, I didn't come up with it. I just did it. So if I actually create the recipe now I go through my cupboards, my spice cupboards, and I will spice the fish, and people will be like, this is amazing. And I can be like,
Is fish spice?
thank you. No, it's not. Thank you. Because I used my knowledge and I created this recipe. Whereas before it was harder for me to say that. With our daughter, encouraging her to branch out and close her eyes to inputs and do it on her own.
Yeah.
So that she can see what she has inside of her, gives her a better perspective of what she's capable of.
Yeah.
Also, like I had said before, listening to the praise. I just finished a project that took me 3 years to do. And when I set out on the project, it was something that I love doing. It's hand embroidery, and I love doing it. I find relaxation in it. And so to me, it was like, oh, no big deal. Whatever, I'll do it. It became a hurdle as the 3 years passed, and I had to continue on with the project, even though I wanted to be done and I had other projects I needed to focus on. But I plugged through. The family helped me plug through, and it got done. The amount of joy the woman, so she called me yesterday. She just got the package of dish towels that I had embroidered. And
pillowcases, right?
And 2 pillowcases, yeah. But the sheer joy that she saw, and I gave her what I called was a patience discount, because I was like, you waited 3 years for this project. You do not have to pay, full price,
Which I
because
completely
this is
disagree with you, but that was nice of you.
And
the hours you put into this.
126 is what I
That's a lot of hours.
Yeah.
That's a lot of hours.
It is. It's a lot of hours. It's a lot of going to allergy shots with our kids and sitting in the waiting room. And when you think, like, you add it up, it's like, wow, that took me a really long time to do this project. But anyway, she was so excited by the workmanship in it. She's like, I can't believe you did this with your hands. It's incredible. The project was to replicate what her mother had done on some dish towels and pillowcases way back that had gotten worn out. And so I did, but I have a different technique maybe, or just my stitches are more even. I don't know how else to put it.
I have even stitches. Yeah.
I have even stitches and she didn't.
Yeah.
And so unfortunately, like, it kind of showed, but the woman was so pleased.
Yeah. Well, because it's like a new
showed.
version of her childhood.
Yeah.
That she can then have in her house. And
So to me, it was like, well, that's what I do for relaxation. I just love doing it. But being able to see how much value she saw in it. And she's like, patience discount, I'm going to send you more than what you've asked for because you have earned it. And so actually letting that sink in and be like, oh, I do have even stitches. You know?
Yeah, right, right. Of course you do. I've seen you cut carrots. Your stitches are going to be immaculate.
But yeah, that's my point, is just allowing
the praise to sink in. Listen to it.
To
Hear
be
it.
praised instead of allowing the critic inside of me say, oh, they're just being
nice. Yeah.
And I know that that's something that you struggle with as well, with regards to, hey, your sermon, it was amazing. They're just being nice. No.
Well, yeah.
Not just being nice.
Yeah.
Like, you don't have to go out of your way to compliment somebody outside of a church scenario. Like, if somebody is seeking out your work and then seeks you out again to compliment you, you're doing good work.
Yeah, right.
Doesn't mean that you have a better place in paradise or heaven.
Right.
No, but it means that God be praised, you've been given this gift. And if you enjoy doing it, like with your books, if it's something that brings fulfillment to your day and you just can't not do it, then do it. And know that it's good.
Yeah, that's good. With the books, it is, again, there's a certain point at which I have changed I have allowed my reasoning for why I should write to become a bad reason to write. And it is important that I unhook that caboose and let it fall behind on the track. And then I will enjoy writing. And some of that means then refusing to let myself be pressured to write, especially for the wrong reasons. Because
it can go both ways. Like, my thinking on your Mad Mondays team is, this is a group of people that, for the most part, have volunteered for a very long time. And if there is a burnout level and there is a position where they're like, I just can't keep doing it, is it even worth it? Yeah, it's worth it. Absolutely. I mean, I don't know how many subscribers. I know at one point you were like, we want 1,000. I feel like you probably gotten over that.
We're almost to 2,000.
Okay.
And that, more important than that, we've said this internally, but it's the kind of praise that doesn't sink in. We have an over 50% open rate, and I believe it's over 25 or over 30% click-through rate, which is not possible.
Yeah.
No one has that. So
it's really good.
Yes.
Feedback.
To the target audience, we are ridiculously valuable. To everyone else who's not so cool, they unsubscribe. I'm looking at you, Meredith.
Oh, no. Let's clarify.
I'm making a joke.
I did not unsubscribe. No,
a joke.
we need to follow this all the way to the end right now. I did not unsubscribe.
We
I
unsubscribe
got
those who don't open it.
You don't open your emails. Bye-bye. And I think there's like a picture of you waving, like a GIF.
That's hilarious. That's
Or
Shadowbroker.
Like,
That's great. So, and part of that is why we have a good click-through rate is we manage that, but other people manage that too. Professionals pay lots of money to manage, and they get a 15% open rate. Okay, 15% is standard. 50+% we have.
Yeah.
Because to our target, it is that valuable. And so no one's impersonating. That's the word. No one's impersonating no one, right?
Mm-hmm.
There is real value. And that's to say nothing of E. Darwin. I'm going to lose his last name. I shouldn't lose the last name. Bunny Trail. John Michael Jones Gets a Life, our original comic that is fantastic.
Oh, right.
It is so beautiful. The only problem with it is there's not more. Like that's it. I want to read 3 to 5 of them in a week so I get more of the story at one time. But it's so good. So I mean, it's just what is providing Imposter Schmosher.
So if the question is, should we have a paywall? Like it has shown that it's worth something.
The paywall, well, and then it'll show itself if people want to pay for the paywall. The paywall concept is that we would have more writing. So we would have others who write, and we have a team of people who are willing, from the Turnip Magnet to Dr. Kuntz to people who aren't nobody.
And that's going to help with the burnout rate too, I would think.
Potentially, it's more work for the people who manage.
Oh,
yeah.
Okay.
But they're committed to this. And then the other thing that would exist is a possible daily email from yours truly. Talk about burnout, but I think I have that one. Hack is the wrong word. I think I have that one in a place where I'm kind of excited about what it could be, because Ziklag Daily is what that one is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So no imposters. Speaking of imposters, speaking of doing it wrong, speaking of writing, there was a to-do in the last week on Twitter that I didn't know about because I'm barely on Twitter, and no one tagged me on it. Someone did tag me on a liberal thing from C.S. Lewis that me and Hans Feeney got to respond to, and I did see that because I check my notifications every couple of days because I do go on to post Mad Mondays stuff. I post it and I get out, and so I see 9 notifications. Who likes Mad Mondays? Is it Mad Mondays? Is it new follows? I'm curious. Takes just a moment. And I mean, what I like is that I've been kind of like, okay, so what's the homepage look like? And I don't even care. Like, it really is like, it's just more that, whatever. So the to-do had to do with a CPH book that's been published by a woman about Christianity. And whether or not this is good or bad. Are we about to ordain women or not? And this author, who's a wife, I don't know if she's a mother, she self-styles herself a church historian, who has like 3 degrees in history, reads German and Latin. I mean, she's not a slouch, okay? Has written a book for CPH about Lutheran identity, I think, if I'm gathering this right, and was interviewed on Issues Etc. Okay, because Issues Etc. is paid by CPH a very small amount of money, less than they deserve, I will say, in order to promote their books, and so there is a to-do about whether or not this is again the slippery slope to the end of the LCMS as we know it via women's ordination.
Wow, that's big.
Yeah, it's quite a.
That's really big.
It was a to do, and And so it was sort of brought up within the Mad Mondays team that perhaps I could use my platform to weigh in on this just a touch. And the funny thing is, like, I'm kind of surprised at how much I don't care.
Yeah, right.
Because I do really care about whether or not we are faithful to the Bible, to the confessions, to the history of our identity as what we now call Lutherans, even though the name is just worth less than bad salt at this point. So I do care, but it's sort of like 8-year-old boys are having their bodies cut off.
Yeah.
And this is not a pastor. This is not an attempt to be a pastor.
And what's the book?
There's no preaching going on. Confessing Jesus or something.
Is it? So it's just about being a Lutheran. It's not about being a woman in Lutheranism.
No, it's not like I'm a woman teaching women on purpose. So very clearly, I'm in my little my place.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Which, I mean, so here's where, I mean, again, this is not someone trying to preach in a pulpit. Could it be connected to that? We live under Nazi Germany right now. Like, if this were women's ordination, do you think that's really what's going to kill the SMS? Don't you see we're dying? We're dying anyway. Like, I'm not saying go do the stupid thing. I'm saying, like, really, you're gonna make this into something it's not while ignoring the giant things staring you in the face. Here's the real theological bones for me. Is a woman allowed to confess her faith? Like, if are you allowed to say, I believe this?
Mm-hmm.
Can you do it in a group of men?
Yeah.
I would hope so. So why is writing not that and suddenly preaching in a pulpit? Now, I'm not saying that a woman should always write anything she wants and have it be published by CPH.
Mm-hmm.
I think there's absolutely a time when you could open a book from CPH with a woman's name on the cover and be like, this has gone too far.
Mm-hmm.
To do that, you'd have to open the book. I don't think you can tell from the cover. Does Katie Sherman teach theology in her fiction novels? She sure does. Is she teaching theology in the pastoral? Is she confessing her faith in art?
Mm-hmm.
Chloe, our daughter, again, our artist, has drawn Hebrew lettering with images on signs. Slippery slope. She's almost a pastor. Look at her preaching in Hebrew, right? Like, so this is, and I love, actually, I am fans of some of the people who are on the other side, the anger argument side of this. But I'm kind of like, guys, you're crying wolf here. And I don't know. I haven't read the book. Maybe the book, if you read the book, she's totally over the line. She's the next Marva Dawn. We got to stop her before we ruin the LCMS. Maybe. But I think understanding what a pastor is like one of the major problems we have right now. And this is like a red herring in that. Right? Should CPH only publish stuff by pastors? Or can a scholar be a scholar and not be Philip Melanchthon? Hello? I mean, if Katie Luther had a memoirs, would it be wrong to read it? You know, she didn't. She doesn't. They didn't publish it if she did. But it's like... So that's where I'm at. Is a woman has to be able to confess her faith. A man has to... If you don't confess your faith before men, you actually are denying your faith.
Mm-hmm.
And if you are compelled to write it down and someone else says, wow, that's good enough to like encourage other people to confess their faith too. This is not a broach of Paul's injunction that a woman should not teach in the public assembly. I mean, the public assembly is the gathering around the word and sacraments of Jesus Christ.
Mm-hmm.
having authority over a man. I'm all for the, like, maybe gender roles are upside down, and maybe if you have a female CAO, it's not going to work out as good as it could because it's against natural law. But we got to get off the idea that this is some sort of like sin, no sin, again, tit for tat legalism approach. Like the moment you have a woman CEO, society has fallen apart. The world is so filled with ugly gray. We have to be able to operate in it without freaking out all the time.
Yeah.
It's fine if it's wrong. Let's not freak out. Let's disagree peaceably as those who, but that's just it. For some, it seems that this is the rabbit in the hat. This is the time. This is the stand. This is the place.
Well, I suppose my concern in hearing about this is something that, if it even matters, what I think about this.
Well, see, this is just it. This is half the question. Is it okay for you to talk on this show?
Does it matter?
Is it okay for you to talk on the show? Is it okay for Frisbee?
I've struggled with that.
Is it okay for Frisbee to write on Mad Mondays? Mm-hmm. She's writing. She has thoughts. Mm-hmm. Sometimes they're about Jesus.
God be praised.
Oh, I don't know.
Really thankful that
it's a betrayal of the
Frisbee
pastoral office.
Is thinking about
should be reserved to men alone.
That's a good thing.
Like, there's a point at which it actually becomes chauvinism. And
yes.
This is not the era in which I want to speak against patriarchy. Like, I'm trying to establish a school for patriarchy. The Sons of Solomon is about patriarchy, and I'm having to stand here and defend women's rights. I mean, it kind of blows my mind a little bit.
Well, I don't know that you're defending women's rights. I think what you're doing is trying to say, we only have so many bullets.
Yeah.
So let's make sure we use them wisely.
Yeah, take aim. Yeah.
And my concern is, in all things that I do, am I taking away something that a man should be doing? Am I doing it instead of him? If I'm on the altar guild, am I taking away a position where a man can serve?
Yeah, that's good.
And why? Why am I on the altar guild? Is it because I'm a florist and I've been trained in precision flower care, and so the congregation pulled me in and said, no, you have knowledge. We need you to serve with these men in this capacity.
Right.
Or is it because nobody else is doing it, and so I need to control the scenario and make sure it doesn't fall apart?
Right.
That's where I'm starting to realize as women, and I didn't bring my Daughters of Wisdom packet, which, by the way, hot off the press, we got to hold them in our hands last night at our Friday night gathering. Oh, don't trip. There we go. I was reading in the Daughters of Wisdom packet in the beginning last night. I was like, oh, I'm just going to pray. I'm going to read through this and pray. Oh, okay. I'm sorry. Here. So this is it. Can you even see it?
No, so come over here and I'll show you right
You need to show it up.
There's the Daughters of Wisdom packet. They are beautiful. They are, I can't get there.
So we shared it last night at our gathering, and I'm going to change the topic. This isn't what I was going to say before, but I want to say that I opened it up with some ladies who were there, and we were at the grill because that's what I do on Friday night is I cook meat. And the page 16, it's at the very end, says, receive goodness. Do you feel unequipped to be a godly woman?
Told you need the tissues. I was right.
And the woman who was standing next to me, she read it out loud. Are you a woman? You are a princess. Are you a wife? You are a queen. Are you a mother? You are a life giver. And she said, that makes me want to cry. So, yep, amen.
But
the reason that I wanted to bring it up was because I was talking about how we as women we do try to control things. I think that that's our part of the curse, is our desire will be for our husband. We desire to take over. And at the end of the packet, it talks about duties of a mother. And the last one is trust your limits. And then at the beginning, it says, it tells you how to do the different parts of being a daughter of wisdom. So carry a Bible, wear a crucifix, pray the scriptures, ponder a proverb. And then it has a question, what if I can't do it all? And it beautifully answers, slow down, Christ has done it for you. The next question, what if I'm not in control? You are true daughters when you do what is good and do not give way to fear. Remember that in Jesus Christ, in his body given for you, all power has been perfected in weakness. We don't have to be in control. And that's where, as I listened to you talk about this woman who's been given the gift of knowledge, God be praised, she has been given the time and the focus to be able to write her thoughts down in like coherent sentences over and over again.
Yeah.
And then somebody else saw fit to put it into a published book. Is there a man out there that could have or should have done it instead? Probably. But for whatever reason, Christ has sought fit that she is published. And you had mentioned this proverb. I hate that it's a Buddhist proverb, but where a guy has a horse and it runs away and his neighbor says, oh, that's unfortunate. And the guy says, we'll see. And then the horse is found and the guy's neighbor says, that's fortunate. And he says, we'll see. And then the horse dies and the
son goes off to war and gets killed on the horse.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
That's how it goes? So anyway, my point is it's like, well, we'll see. The Lord has a plan with this. Now, do we need to go out and buy her book and lead Bible studies, reading her, have her come be a teacher studies? Of it. Yeah, do we have to have her suddenly coming and being at our Bible study, teaching? Like, no. And would that be serving her and her family?
No.
To pull her away and ask her to teach in that way? Like, as a church body, we can help her in her vocation. Yeah. But we can also appreciate the gifts that she's been given. So I'm torn because I don't want to take over what men have slacked on. Because the only way for them to take charge again is for it to get completely run down and ruined. And then for them to see, oh, why don't we have pews to sit in at church? Oh, because they broke and nobody fixed them.
They were too busy reading books from CPH written by women to fix the pews.
They were too busy arguing on Twitter about whether or not this is ordination. Yes,
yes, and that's my point. Like, it is a something in a teapot. What's the phrase? It's a storm in a teapot. Oh, it's like a storm in a teapot. A hurricane in a teacup, something like that. You know, you just have. It's just so big, but it's just really just so small. And so that's where I want to say something about the booklet. But like, okay, a little history of CPH. Concordia Publishing House, LCMS's official publishing arm. In the 1980s or so, it fell apart. hard. They went weird, liberal, not thinking, definitely promoting women as their primary writing source for theological works, one woman in particular. And so there were a lot of things coming through that were not written by men, but by women. And wow, wouldn't you know, it was all kind of evangelical stuff. So the woman who was so great that everyone wanted to have be the future, star of CPH, was not exactly the most justification-oriented person you could find. And there were other things going on as CPH was effectively becoming Tempest in a teacup. Thank you very much. So a teapot. So they got that one right there. Tempest in a teapot. It's cricket. In a teapot. There's like no commentary, and then that like boom, boom, boom talk. And so CPH was inviable, financially inviable. They were not selling either. So that was also happening. And then you have an event that occurs, and I don't know how this occurred exactly, but there was an interim president named Paul McCain who basically came in and said, we're going to be the Lutheran publishing house. We're going to publish Lutheran materials, and we're going to stop publishing things trying to break into some other markets or whatever it is. And the long and short of that is that it did become financially viable within a couple of years. So by publishing for the target audience that they existed to publish for, that went well. And they definitely made an effort to seek out Lutheran pastors as writers. So the fear that could happen again, I think is a very reasonable fear. It's a very reasonable fear, especially given the fact that they are or went through a leadership change recently, probably highly necessary. Went through a leadership change recently. That it means always an identity crisis. That means always the next person comes in is going to maybe take us in some other direction. And who knows whether that will be down the road to liberalism, because it always is. I mean, they're always at the gates trying to pull down the walls. It's never not that. So I get it. CPH has tried for the last 10 years to find male writers. And they can't find anybody who will write for them.
Yeah, it's like, get off Twitter, write it in a book, and publish it.
They can't find anybody. Now, being a male writer who has published with CPH, I won't ever do it again if I can help it. Because they treat their writers like crap. So the fact, see how complex this is. Okay? Sorry, but it's true. See how complex this is. So we have this thing where we have this organization that as a church body we own in order to do certain things, and it has become such a thing of the world that it is self-destructing underneath the self-destruction of the LCMS, in the institutional collapse of our economic collapse, of our civilizational collapse of the Western civilization, okay? And down here in this little corner, it's doing it to itself, and as a result, no one's really that interested to work with them. Some people are, but not enough apparently. And then so here comes this woman who's willing to do it, and I guarantee you they didn't publish the book she wrote, and like, I mean, they did, but like they strong-armed this or that, and this was doctrinally wrong here, and it would probably maybe I don't know, maybe not, maybe my experience was the only one that was like mine, and it's all different for everybody else, but I've not heard that from other people, and so it's like, look, you're trying to save CPH on Twitter by arguing about theology as if the institution isn't probably gone already. And I'm not talking about because women's ordination. I'm talking about financially, 20 years, demographic collapse, not able to sell what needs to be sold to keep doors open. No avoiding this. Has nothing to do with anybody and how hard they tried. Just the end of easy institutions in the United States. So why that rather than your local men's group? Right? Why that rather than you being involved running for school board in your county? Why not get an actual stake in actual ground ASAP? Hey, start a publishing house. Because it's not that hard to do, and you don't need everything they have, but you do need one really good editor. You need a really good editor that's all he wants to do. Okay? So, like, and I'm not saying they're even wrong, because I don't know. I haven't read the book. I don't care. Because the corner that you're in is so small, and from my perspective is probably gone anyway. And so if it gets worse as it goes down, I mean, why would it not? They're going to grasp at every straw they can. And frankly, then going and looking at the book on Amazon for 10 minutes, or not even that, for 3 minutes, it doesn't look that bad. She's just a historian, and she's just confessing her faith. Like, what's wrong? What's wrong with that? So, but like, tempest in a teapot. Mm-hmm. Tempest in a teapot. Comments and kind of catching my mind. So you are a princess. Mm-hmm. From this. I want to make sure that I explain just a touch of that concept. So, because it sounds a little bit like some Oprah Winfrey to me if I just take it on the surface. Mm. Yeah? Like you are special, all this, right? So, Sons of Solomon document, original version came out with the Pendragon Principle. The Pendragon Principle is a way to try to codify and gamify the fourth commandment as authority being a good thing that men should aspire to for the sake of those who they can help by protecting. And one of the things that we kind of learned over the course of the first two runs of this document, Sons of Solomon, by the way, we can probably put this up while we talk about this, was that Pendragon Principle, while cool and inspirational to a certain subsection of nerds, isn't exactly the most translatable concept in the world. And so in the new document, we have gone straight at the culture war, and it is now called the Patriarchy Principle. Nicely still has the alliteration of PP to just run it through. So the Patriarchy Principle, which I don't even know where the Patriarch Principle, right? All authority is given from above to below for those, you can't really see it.
No, you just need to read it.
For those, all authority is given from above to below for the sake of those further below still. So with that concept being a key part of this document, and like there aren't enough good men, become one. If there is no head in the community of men that you're in, that means you're the head if you're willing and able, if you have the courage to just become. So step in. There always needs to be a voice. If there is no voice, be the voice. So we needed something similar for the Daughters of Wisdom packet, but obviously to be a daughter of wisdom is not to seek to be the head of your local anything. That would be the opposite of what you're supposed to do.
Right.
And so what principle should dominate a woman's role, right? And especially that starts with P. So it can be the princess principle. And so, but I was thinking about it quite a bit, and princess came up a bit later as an option. But the reason for the princess principle is not you're a princess because you're just special and you're prettier than everyone and you get to be selfish. It's because the name Sarah is the word princess. Mm-hmm. And Sarah is the one who St. Peter alludes to in 1 Peter chapter 3 when he tells women to subject yourselves to your husbands. Mm-hmm. So the princess principle is, to quote another verse, the incorruptible beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit that is exceedingly precious in the king's sight. Yeah. So for those of you who freaked out about the princess moment a few moments ago, please understand how deeply biblical this is, and how essential to a woman's identity it is that she be seen within her home as queen or princess. Yeah. And then act accordingly, which means to be noble wherever you go, which would not mean to stick your nose in where it doesn't belong, but it definitely means to glory in being the weaker sex and see that role is unique and necessary to the community in its own way. So you can definitely get copies of these documents, as many as you would like, honestly, if you'll send your information through sonsofsolomon.net contact. We will give them to you, and you can give them out, give them away, don't throw them away. Throw them to your neighbors. Do not throw them away. They're not that free.
You could buy them as trick-or-treat
There
things
was such
that you give
a
away.
great moment. Speaking of trick or treat, and we do have a Halloween question that we can go into here, but there was such a great moment last night when we were talking about I don't even know how it came up, but somehow it was about kind of the immorality of giving away candy to children, and someone was like, "We just give cans of sardines," I'm like, I kind of wanna just.
We only have like 10 trick-or-treaters. We could. It's not like it would put us out of.
They never
house
come
and
back.
home.
They never come back. Like you get home, you open your bag, like that heavy candy bar. Can't wait to see what that was. Oh. Kansas, can you imagine? Kansas, how angry these children would be. Like you jit me.
A wrap around
You get an egg on your house if you
Tougher
if you go with
times
that.
are coming.
Hey, let's jump to that question here. Let's see here if I can tell. Yeah, there it is. Let's jump to that question because it's worth digging into. If you do have questions for us, you can send them to RevFisk.com. Oh, you can't see that now. RevFisk.com/contact, RevFisk.com/contact. We do try to get to all the questions. I'd love to have the day come when we can't, but we still can. So keep sending them. All right. Homesteading Lady writes, I haven't celebrated Halloween since we left the Catholic Church for a non-denominational church in 1990. When we lived on a busy trick-or-treat street, we passed out tracts stapled to candy bars. I didn't want to pass up an opportunity to give out God's word to those who would receive anything from my door. When we finally found the LCMS church, I was surprised that they celebrated Halloween and had a trunk or treat event. After I talked with my pastor, we relaxed our standards, meaning a family, relaxed our standards for the last 6 years, but still feel uncomfortable. We also Civil War reenact, so we started participating in events, but dressed in Civil War clothes that we called costumes. Now that I've heard your perspective, I think we should go back to our pre-Lutheran convictions. What is the official stance from the Lutheran Church on Halloween? I know, right? And does your opinion differ from that? So... I love the piety that you would believe there's an official stance of the Lutheran Church, right?
Document
there is not. Can I have another tissue? As if that would be the official stance, right? Plant a garden, and which that's an inside joke. So the Lutheran confessions, I've only read them several times, but I've never found anything about Halloween. There is a whole section on traditions. Liturgy. So the concepts of things like Christmas and Easter, and holy days, and there is some stuff definitely on bad traditions like the worship of the saints and stuff like that. But so far as All Saints Day goes, it's not really directly mentioned. And so far as All Saints Eve, All Hallows Eve, Halloween goes, it's not really something that is dogmatically, we have nothing to say to it. So it more calls for wisdom and heritage, cultural understanding, and whatnot. So there is no official Lutheran position, and the Lutheran Church has nothing to say on the matter. However, what you will generally find amongst LCMS Lutherans is, don't worry about it, have fun. And I have to blow my nose. Excuse me, everybody. It's good to be recovering from a cold that is not anything but a cold. How would I know? Because there's more colds in the world than just the one everyone's afraid of. My big thing here is that it's not what it was. Whatever it was in 1962, it's not that anymore, and that's kind of obvious if you look around. And so at a certain point, you have to have some wisdom to discern, not is it okay, is it wrong, is it sin, but is this wise? Is this helping? Is this doing anything good? And then you throw the sugar corn syrup manifesto lifespan into it thing. And I mean, I don't know what those words meant put together, but you throw this like addiction to a substance that's more dangerous, as dangerous as cocaine. It doesn't kill you as fast, but as dangerous and difficult. It is. You cannot stop. That's the problem. Now you're putting these kids like you're gonna hand out heroin. No. Well, why is sugar okay? Well, because it's sugar. It's safe. Oh, you have no idea what you're talking about. You've never studied the history of sugar. You've never studied the science of sugar. I'm talking about cane sugar, and corn syrup and fructose are in the same boat. Okay. So like, is this wise? Is this Christian? Is this making Christian people? Like,
Amen.
Who cares? I'm still on the like, Christian. Who cares point of view. Like, okay, you all want to have your kids dress up like Captain America so they can continue to live a mythology of Americanism. Okay. Like, is that in itself hell binding? No. Okay, you want to all get together with your cars and have the kids pretend to be something and walk around and hand out Swedish fish. Is that going to send them all to burning fire? No. But is it doing anything good? Well, if the kids are having a good time, where is that a good idea? Why is that the thing that determines everything these days? And, well, we got people to come to the church parking lot, and maybe some of them will believe in Jesus. You know what? Maybe some of them will. But bait and switch is a bait and switch, and I'm not for it. Doesn't matter what it is. Bait and switch ain't cool. So it's there's even a word for it. No, there's a Bible passage. It's 2 Corinthians. We disregard underhanded techniques, but by plain and open proclamation make known what we believe. And so, all these attempts to like camouflage the gospel through fun, which is the reason youth group has become the disaster. I mean, to me, it's the same question. Is Halloween okay? Is youth group okay? Yeah. You go ahead. But it hasn't worked out well for like 60 years now. So maybe whatever they were doing before, which was not this stuff, was wiser. Maybe taking a step back is wiser.
What was it? I was talking to somebody about how at 15 in generations past, you would be considered an adult. And so you wouldn't make the choices that you're making, that 15-year-olds are making today. Like, there just wouldn't be that mentality. And so the concept, like you said, youth group, the concept of youth group is no. We don't have youth group. We have men's group.
Yeah.
Boys, you want to be men.
Yeah.
You don't want to be a youth forever.
No, right.
It does no service to us, nor society, nor your children.
Yeah.
And we are reaping the years of youth group right now as our country just, falls apart.
Filled with youth.
Falls apart and is so tender-hearted in a way that it's so fragile it can't defend itself.
Mm-hmm. So I want to emphasize, I have not said anything about the demonic and occult connection points that could be associated with elements of All Hallows Eve as currently practiced in the United States. I think it's worth kind of noticing that it is, as a celebration, it is a celebration of the wicked. Like, if you just look at the yards, look what's in the yards. I get it, they're cartoon versions, but it is a celebration of the wicked. And so, like, I don't care if you dress up. I don't care if you eat candy. I think it's kind of nonsensical and maybe even really foolish. I really have to say that Christians should not participate in occult things, and that even a funny version of that, when it is celebrated as a national mandated, you're not allowed to not like it reality, maybe we should just back out of that little game plan a little bit. Why is it so important that everyone like Halloween? Why are you in trouble? Why am I in trouble for not liking it and thinking it's wrong, right? Why does that cause so much offense to people? How dare I? Like, you're awfully emotionally invested in this thing. Is it religious to you? No, of course not. Oh, really? That's funny because you just seem so zealous about it. Why the zeal? Like, I like my sugar. Okay, well, I get it. But actually, parents hate that. They're like, oh, now the kid's got to have the sugar for 2 weeks. Oh, it's going to be so much energy. And parents don't enjoy any of this. Why do we put ourselves through this stuff? It's like put on the birthday parties. Like you just beat yourself up for what? The kid doesn't know the difference until you give them
tell them that there is a difference.
Yeah, right. And so for there is no Lutheran perspective, but please know that I'm definitely on the outside. Most LCMS pastors are going to say that what I'm saying is nonsense and tomfoolery, and I got a tempest in a teapot over here in my corner in RevFisk land. So to me, this is not the hill to die on. I'm not like, well, Halloween is the thing that's destroying Western civilization. No. Halloween is just bad fruit. It's just bad fruit. And bad fruit is not the problem. It's the bad root that is the problem. All right. So if you're running around trying to change the fruit, you're missing the actual issue. Where's the root? Cut off the root. And Halloween, at its root, has a lot more to do with, how to say this? The root that has led to the problems of Halloween is largely the profiteering economic entertainment complex that sees fun and the children getting what they want as the most important thing for a child's life forever, and all society is geared financially to make this happen, while at the same time impoverishing the middle class by turning them into obedient serfs who are incapable of thinking for themselves and will continue to be cogs in the machine and have their wealth stolen out from under them without noticing what's going on because they're too busy fat and watching TV. And this is a plan, so far as I'm concerned. And if it's not man-made, it's demonic-made. That's the plan. So Halloween's just like this little tiny like bead in that giant problem. And so, yeah, I mean, I'm not going to participate in it, not in the way that I'm supposed to, at least. What are we going to do here? We've talked about this. We're going to celebrate Reformation. We're going to let people dress up.
Yeah, I'm repenting of that.
Thank you.
I am so repenting of that.
I'm just not a fan. But I don't costumes, who cares? Dressing fun, who cares? But like, wow, see how quickly it boiled over.
It became so much more important than real life.
Yes.
And that made me so sick to my stomach.
Yes. Are we going to give out sardines to the kids who come to the door?
I like that idea. And I want to wrap around it a little paper that says, tougher times are coming. You were reading somebody's comments.
I was, but I caught what you said. That I don't know. I think there's a middle ground somewhere.
No. Usually what we do is we buy something really good because we only get like 10 trick-or-treaters. So we'll give like the full-on Hershey's candy bar and just give it to them because, and we have our lights on and we have a gathering at our home where we have talking and music. If you walk up to the door, you'll hear not like party music, but singing hymns and things like that. So there's definitely a warm glow in our home,
in the house
that day.
to be part of the neighborhood.
Yeah.
I'm just thinking about how this year, it's probably a little late. I mean, if I have to give sugar, I'd much rather give like a small bag of really good beef jerky.
Yeah. It's not too late.
Yeah. Like something
Costco's still open.
In that, they don't have small bags.
They might.
I don't know. They have the big bag of those meat. If they had small bags of those, it's not beef jerky. It's like the
meat stick.
No. When we get them when we go on vacation sometimes, and they do have a small sugar content.
They're called steak strips.
Steak strips, man.
Well,
are those tasty.
I mean, for the homeless packs, we've been buying different kinds of beef jerky packets, and I've found different ones, not just the stick of meat, but So, since I know that's what you would like, I think so. Make it happen.
I think so. I think because that's something that, I mean, if you get the standard beef jerky, it's sweet enough that they're not going to be like, those people, what did they give me? Yeah, but
or the dad will be like, ooh.
At least, yeah, right. Yeah.
I'll take that one off your hands.
Yeah, right.
Fathers, why do you always know what's so good? Like, you do deep down. You love the meat. You love the stuff that's so good for us. And like, why don't we just?
Yeah, a lot of people don't know that anymore, though. Which I mean, they hunger for it, I suppose.
hunger
But you
for
have
it.
this whole upside down thing where they
like,
don't.
Okay, so we got to go to the West Coast, and
That was nice.
you were not craving, but just really wanting to relive your In-N-Out burger days. And I asked you at one point, I was like, do you think, because you were like, this was my favorite food. And I'm like, look at what it was. Cheese and meat. Yes, you did have a bun on it, and you didn't know.
A bun with potatoes dipped in corn syrup, followed by sparkling corn syrup. So it wasn't exactly all so wise.
But at the same time, it wasn't like you ordered, oh, I just want the
grilled cheese.
The grilled cheese or some weirdo nothing sandwich. Like, you got the meaty hunka.
Oh yeah, the double with cheese.
And
gotta do it.
It's like, inside of you as a teenager, your body knew what it was needing.
Right. Yeah.
But we're so brainwashed.
Yeah.
Is it red, green, orange, and blue?
Blue. Purple's the tough one to get when you're eating the rainbow. You got to go with the eggplant, and it's not purple when you eat it. So
yeah,
purple's pretty
tough. I know.
Tough.
Well, and you asked me at one point, as I was like, yeah, the kids, they're supposed to eat the rainbow. And you're like, well, what color is this apple? Like, can I eat a red apple, a yellow apple, and a green apple? And have it be different colors? And I was like, I don't know.
So In-N-Out is a popular topic. Apparently, Darren points out the first thing I do when I get in California is I go to In-N-Out. Let the record show that the last thing I did almost was go to In-N-Out the night before we left. But the first thing we did was I got myself a San Diego only. Nobody from the rest of California gets to even say they know, because they don't. I've been there. You have the wrong one. A San Diego style carne asada burrito. You have no clue until you've done it. I really recommend the first thing you do if you're south of those mountains that lead down into North County. You get yourself a carne asada. You will be amazed.
Surf Shack?
We went to Taco Surf.
Taco Surf,
which is a more expensive place, but it's there in Pacific Beach. Chili Banditos in East County is a great spot to hit up. So there's a lot of them though, and you are going to get a big old wheat tortilla, but inside will be almost nothing but steak.
It was crazy. Yeah, I didn't believe it, because when the first time that I was taken to San Diego, my husband, who was, I don't know if we were even married. No, we weren't, because it was like the first time.
Well, you visited, yeah.
He's like, we gotta go get burritos. And so, being from Northern California, we had something called the California burrito, and it had meat and beans and cheese and guacamole and rice,
French fries,
and it was like a full on whatever food pyramid in a wrap. And so I ordered the California burrito. It came with French fries in it.
Yeah, that's the San Diego
It
thing.
was so weird.
Some people love that, though. Some people really love that.
I did not order potatoes. Ew. So
it's called filler.
Yeah.
It's called filler.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. So first thing we did was we went and we got carne asada burritos for those of us who could have them, and carne asada on the side for those of you who could not have the burrito. And it was also the last thing I did.
That's right.
And I didn't even plan that.
Kids and I were taking pictures. Oh, you ate it while we were taking pictures at the beach.
I did, because there was nowhere to park.
Because he had to drive around, because it was busy Saturday. But yeah, we were like, I said something like, what would you like to do? You were like, I want to do something, but I know I can't. And I was like, we can make this happen. In Saturday rush hour traffic, which is such a weird concept.
To get to the beach.
Calling the shop, ordering it so that it was ready right when we pulled up. You didn't even have to park.
Yeah, it was great. For the sake of those of you who like our show and support us on Subscribestar or Patreon, let it be known that none of your money was used to get us to San Diego and back. This was entirely a gift that was provided by our family, by a viewer, which is fantastic. And thank you. Thank you for
Yeah.
that.
Super
so
fun.
it's not the kind of thing we thought we'd ever get to do. But if you do want to support us at patreon.com, you certainly can. There you go. Thanks to those of you who do. So back to the Halloween conversation. I think so there is no Lutheran position on this. It's Reformation Day.
It is. And it is a good day. Like, just do a little research about that day.
Yeah. Like, to me, that's like you have all these Lutherans just ignoring Reformation Day. And I get it. You can't fight the cultural battle against all the people in the public school with other kids watching TV and all they want is this. Yeah. That's my point. Right. So
I have a funny story about this. So the person who turned me on, or people who turned me on to celebrating Reformation Day are, it was a group of seminarians, and they all had come to St. Louis Seminary from Ann Arbor, Michigan. At their Ann Arbor had a pre-sem, or has a pre-sem. Is Ann Arbor still a thing? I don't ever hear about it.
They are under the management of Mequon, I believe.
Oh, okay. Yeah. So they had a pre-sem program. So all those guys came together and were at seminary. Anyway, they invited me. Jonathan had something else. I think he was on tour with the basketball team. Is that the right season?
Yeah, I think that's right. It was.
So they were up in Fort Wayne.
Not yet.
No.
That's January.
They were somewhere playing basketball, and so I was just kind of by myself. So I went to the party, the Reformation party, by myself, and they're like, bring a hymnal. Perfect, because then they're gonna they were gonna sing Luther hymns, and that's what we did, and it was fun. But I almost forgot my hymnal, went running into the house. It was dark, and I didn't look at the books, but Jonathan had a hymnal and an agenda right next to each other. So I just grabbed the agenda and off I went. And the hostess was like, "Oh, Meridith, how nice of you to bring your agenda. Are you going to lead us in prayer?"
You're like, no, it's a slippery slope.
That's right.
It's funny. Where is my agenda?
Okay, so
You
we
used
had it here for a minute for the house blessings.
Those were not my agenda.
Oh.
There are two agendas that belong to St. Paul Lutheran Church, and they are both at St. Paul Lutheran Church. And my agenda...
You know, it might be actually in the library.
Why would it be over there?
No. Like, on the other side of this wall.
Okay, good. And
we have a pile.
For the record, everyone can know my agenda when they find it, because if you open the cover, it says property of Batman. Once upon a time, I had a sticker that said property of Batman. I put it in my agenda. Now I know my agenda. Okay. So, and the thing about my agenda is that it has some detailed notes for funerals that I would love to not lose. I can operate without, but I would love to have them. Sure. So wherever that disappeared to.
God be praised, you don't do funerals very often.
Well.
So it's nice to have those refresher notes when you have to do it.
I got to do them. All Hallows Eve is Reformation. Singing hymns is something we do and will do again. But just, it's kind of like if you want to talk culture battle and not being who you are and letting the world tell you who you're going to be, I don't know how you begin to fight back and not see All Halloween as an entirely manipulative, identity shifting reality, far worse than Santa Claus at Christmas time. Although that's not a good thing either, in my opinion. No. Not because it's unholy and it means Satan. If you change the letters, like,
really?
If you look, Santa, you can spell Satan with Santa.
But whoa, how much time do we have on our hands?
Like, well, that's not the problem, right? The problem is a lack of identity, of cultural identity, of your culture being subsumed into a conglomerate system that's milking you for everything you're worth and then leaving you in debt when you die, right? So that's sort of my real beef with All Hallows Eve. I think the idea of All Hallows Eve is pretty cool, honestly. That tomorrow is the day of All Hallows, of All Saints. We're going to remember the entire church that has gone before us, including the Old Testament patriarchs and prophets and all this, and see that we are one body in Jesus Christ. And on this night before that, we can remember that we live here where the devil has his throne and prowls about like a roaring lion, seeking people to desire, and huddle down in prayer for the morning, looking forward to the dawning light, which is a foretaste of the Christ the King eschatological reality that's about to show up in church a couple weeks later. So like there's lots there that my cheap Captain America pajamas with plastic mask and giant candy bars just doesn't quite seem to inculcate. There we go. Inculcate.
Will you talk about that at our
I can
party?
try.
I would love that.
I can try.
Because it's a new concept for so many people. And thinking that way. I had to say, guys, not necessarily Hebron guys alone, but we're not jumping out of bushes at people. We're going to be busy celebrating Reformation Day. Like,
yeah, right.
That's not what we're doing.
Are they planning to jump out of bushes at
all
people?
Sorts of plans. All sorts of like not weird. I'm sorry. One plan was we're going to go around and tape the 95 Theses to everybody's door in the neighborhood. Well, maybe not.
Have you read them? Have you read them?
We're going to go trick-or-treating for the homeless. And when we grab our candy, we'll trade with a scroll of the 95 Theses.
Have you read them? Why would you once you've read them, you will not give them away to people. I mean, the first one's really good, and he's got others that aren't bad, but the whole is not. It's not in our confessions on purpose. Jeez.
And then jumping out of bushes or
there's purple carrots. Eat the rainbow. Purple carrots.
Oh, there are. That's right.
Sorry, tangent.
Yeah.
Welcome to the internet.
Yeah. So just in the process of all of it, of getting ready. So it started as we're going to do a Reformation party because that's what we do and that's what we've done. And so we're going to invite the community, the Hebron community, into it. And then the request was, well, can we do costumes? Because, not necessarily do Batman costume, but just dress up in like steampunk dresses. Essentially, the girls wanted to wear dresses that have no place in our society now.
Right.
And so it was like, well, that's innocent enough. Sure, whatever. And then the boys started thinking about how they could jump out of bushes at people. And I'm like, this is no.
I do remember vividly in my childhood neighborhood, one house where like normally you go up and there's the door and there's a bunch of, there was just a gorilla sitting on the porch.
Holding a ball.
He had a bowl. And he just sat there and you had to go up to the gorilla and he would take a piece and he would put it out. He didn't say a word, didn't make a noise. He just sat there. I was terrified.
Even if a person just sat there and was like stone faced.
Yeah. I mean, God.
It would be hard enough.
It was terrifying. Somebody asked, she said, I learned the origin, the German origin of Halloween was to wear masks to scare away the evil spirits, i.e. the devil. Is that true? Maybe. I know that the origin or the logical idea that on the night before all the saints would come through the earth for All Saints Day, coming closer to us, which is not quite how it works, right. That all the devils will go out to play first because they would have to hide in the morning. And Night on Baldwin Mountain and Fantasia has a nice recollection of that a little bit. So not nice, but it shows you the myth. And so then there's the impersonation of the demons with the mask. So I don't think the masks are to scare the demons away. And then there was a point at which the trick or treat is all about like, if you don't give me something to eat, I'm going to like put soap on your windows and dig holes in your garden and just cause all sorts of havoc on your land. So we're the childhood mafia. Give us candy.
Yeah, it's weird.
I just there's very little in it that is good. There's a lot in All Hallows that is actually good if you look into that. So,
Let's move on to a question from, this question is from, I can't even tell you, Confused. Oh, and she wrote in last week. This is similar to her other question, but it's enough different that we can maybe touch on it again. We don't have to spend a ton of time on it if it's too much the same. Excuse me. Reverend Lady Fisk, could you please point me to passages, if any exist, and I'm really hoping that they do, which outline what I've heard you call the proximity of measure for who is my neighbor. Now, I don't remember saying that, but it makes sense. This is, your neighbor is who you are near. And so if I'm near you, you're my neighbor. If you are a starving child in Africa, you're actually not my neighbor. Doesn't mean I can't help you, but the idea of global neighbors is like, it's an oxymoron. There's no such thing as a global neighbor. A neighbor means near. And I mean, you're right. Someone from Russia is more my neighbor than the predator or the aliens, right? Like the alien civilization that's on Alpha Centauri, they're less my neighbor than someone in Siberia, okay? But that's how the proximity thing works, right? Like, so neighbor just means one who is near you. The reason for this request is my husband is a pastor, and I have not been at peace with saying that his immediate family is his most important neighbor because he wants to treat all his brothers and sisters in Christ equally. He is keenly aware as you want to treat your kids the same way you treat your enemies. It's kind of laudable, except for not really. You're supposed to treat your kids like they're your kids. Like, as much as I might strive to love my enemies, I'm not going to hug them before bed every night. Like that would be weird, right? So there's sort of a nice ideological pious wishfulness here that isn't centered in how life happens. And that's maybe the issue. He's keenly aware of and is highly averse to favoritism, and admirably so. That's good, because impartiality is good. Showing partiality is bad. And while we're on that, I'll just go ahead and quickly jump to, oh my goodness, why is that so big? Come here. How do I make that not do that? Wow. The Bible.
So what she's saying is that he wants to place his children first as neighbor?
No, he wants to place his church above his family as a pastor. And that I cannot seem to get the Bible onto the screen no matter what I do. There it is. But I want to laud his desire to not show partiality, because the Bible does say, Paul says to Timothy, I charge you before God and the Lord Jesus Christ and the elect angels, that you observe these things without prejudice, doing nothing with partiality. Proverbs are full of recommendations against partiality. James talks about how you should not be partial when a rich or a poor man come into the church. So there is something incredibly valuable about wanting to not show favoritism. Furthermore, her husband, a pastor, which it's important that we recognize that I don't want to get in between that. He is also not at peace agreeing with any idea unless it comes from a clear passage in the Bible. Ideas got to be laid out verbatim. Any idea? Like, I'm kind of sure salt and pepper work good together, and I don't need the Bible to tell me that. Maybe we're overstating the case here, and we're talking about really trying to. Wisdom means there's more truth than what the Bible says. You just don't ever let anything tell you what the Bible says isn't true. There's a real difference there. If you can't ever do anything that's not written in the Bible, you got to get the organ out of the church ASAP. In fact, don't sing. You can make the argument the Psalter doesn't even say sing in church, because Paul does say make music in her. So don't get me wrong, you can sing, but you can only sing the Bible. You can't sing not the Bible. No poetry, right? Again, very, very difficult to hold these high standards. He's going to have my read on what you're delivering here is he's going to have a hard time maintaining his rules for himself.
He sounds like a new seminary guy.
He is. He's very eager, and it's all wonderful, and I'm sure God has a plan for him, and he will be forged in the fire and all this. But as an older pastor, my encouragement to him would be, you do need to show partiality to your family. You don't treat your kids different than you treat other kids at church, in the sense of you let your kids do evil while the other kids have to do good, but you feed your kids and you don't feed the other kids. You let their parents do that. So that's partiality. I mean, that is order, right? So don't set the idea that you're not going to be partial against order, which is good and given by God. And don't let your hunger to have your life formed by the Bible make it impossible for you to learn, right? Because you will only, I mean, the Bible doesn't even say everything it says clearly. Much of the wisdom that's there is not clear, and the wisdom comes in searching for it and hunting that. If you just open Isaiah to the middle and start reading, you need some history to have it make sense. Okay, so it's ideal. He's idealist. It's good. He's young. It could get him really beat up. And that will be God's will to forge him in the fire if that's what happens. But I would encourage a young man, like ease off on the idealism. Like, you live in a pretty crazy place. Don't insist that anybody who convinces you of anything ever has to have a Bible verse to quote. That isn't quite how it works. Could you both please share your thoughts on what healthy husband-wife, pastor, congregation, father-children relationships look like when the father is so busy all the time? All the pastors' wives I've met seem to have a good relationship with their husbands, but none of them are happy about how the church comes first, and none of the pastors feel comfortable in their consciences putting their family first the way the wife would like. The wives are all either absorbed in their kids' careers or both to make up for the fact that he's not home. Thank you for all that you do to walk upright and teach us to lift our heads up all the more as we see the day approaching. Signed, Confused. Yeah, so I really have a problem with this idea that the church comes before the family. I actually think that's kind of godless. And I'll go ahead and point to a Bible verse on this one, since you want it to be from a clear passage of Scripture. 1 Timothy chapter 3, in the duties required of an overseer, is pretty clear that if a man does not know how to rule his own house, how can he take care of the church of God? One of the most important things a man does as a pastor is take care of his family. And so that means the church can't come for the church. If you're going to put the church first, you got to put your family first. And if you don't, and you put the church above the family, you are not putting the church first. You are actually destroying the church by being a bad father. And this will have impact one way or the other somewhere down the road. So that's like the short, sweet answer there. And we talked about this last week with the workaholism that is common to LCMS training, LCMS thinking. We carry way too much on our shoulders. We actually believe we are little gods, little pastor gods, because I've been equipped with long gospel, so I can go out there and I can dynamically preach in such a way that rightly distinguishes, so that everyone will believe, if only I'll do it right, I'll write the sermon again, because it'll get it next time. And if only. And I'm a chief of sinners in all this, which is why I'm so aggressively hating on it. It hurts after a while to try to be the elector, be the Holy Spirit. You can't do it. And so I would spare you this. And a big part of it is just slow down. You really aren't going to fix it. Can you strategically make choices and changes that impact the church positively? Yes. And you're not gonna, if you're running full speed, trying to prop up everything, sticking your finger in every dam, taking every statement as if it's truth, letting every person's need that they feel at any moment be the thing you're supposed to fulfill. That's co-enabling, and it's unwise on so many levels. So I really think this is wrong. The church does not come first. Jesus comes first, to be sure, and then as Jesus' servant in a given place, made a father in the image of the Father from above over the children. The first church you serve is your family. And then your family being served by you in public is what the teacher teaches by doing. So it's not just I stand up here and I tell you all the theories about Jesus that are true, but you can actually see my family practices this religion. And that won't happen if I'm not there. I mean, pious wife can make it happen, but the kids are going to resent this at some point. They really will. And that's what I've seen from a lot of pastors is a lot of pastors' kids who aren't in church. I see pastors' kids who are in church and they're great kids. They're great adults. Some of my best members are pastors' kids, but far more are missing. Yeah. And then the rest of their neighborhood classmates, their Lutheran school classmates with them, also missing. So, yeah. What do you think?
Something that makes me uncomfortable about these conversations that we've had with Confused is this concept of, like, I guess what I need to have explained is what is a parent. So it's a workaholic father or husband, and what is the mother's version where it's consumed by the children? What did she say?
Yeah, it's or career. I think well, it's hover parenting would be one way to talk about it.
Oh, okay. Well, I felt like she kept using some sort of phrasing in both of these letters, and I just want to know, like, what does that look like? What are we afraid of?
Absorbed in their kids.
Absorbed. What does this mean?
Well, I think what she's getting at is they're ignoring the fact that they're discontent with their husband by over fulfilling themselves with the children. They're effectively looking at the children for fulfillment in a way that children can't ultimately fulfill.
Right. But what does that look like? Like, I don't know what that is. That's why I'm
hover
having
parenting.
trouble.
I mean, moms who don't say no. I don't know.
So
lonely women who are also workaholing because they don't rest because their husband doesn't rest, and so they just mimic his behavior.
Okay, so I have had a friendship with a woman who was in a situation where the relationship with her husband went south quickly after marriage, and then babies came shortly thereafter, and her approach was to get them involved in every activity for children. So as tiny people, it would be like reading hour at the library, and then summer camps, and this and that. And so she was running her children from activity to activity to activity.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think that's what she's talking about.
Because the concept of being busy at home, I don't think is a very bad one. And I know that the Bible illustrates that as our place to be. And so being absorbed at home is not the same as being absorbed in fulfilling the American dream for your children, living vicariously through busy children.
That's a good way to say it, though. So living vicariously through the kids, and they're vicariously living the marriage through the kids,
right?
On a certain level, because and again mimicking the father's behavior. I mean, you and I overwork. There's no question about that.
Well, I do, absolutely. I just feel like I have hardly enough time. I don't have enough time with my children.
Yeah.
And so, and I've struggled with that constantly. Yeah.
Okay.
I don't. So I guess what maybe I'm coming at it from a perspective of I am not good at giving advice on this because I have failed so miserably.
Yeah, but that's where I think we've learned the lessons the hard way, and that's why I'm kind of willing to answer this question and really carefully say, like, don't go to your husband and say you need to watch this video and do what Fisk says. But if he does end up watching this, I mean, the reason I'm answering the question is because, like, I've lived it, man. Oh, and it doesn't, it's going to hurt. It's going to hurt. Slow down.
Slow down. I don't know how I could have done it differently.
No one was there to give us any advice on the matter.
The advice I did get, and this is what I've been thinking about recently as I have been trying to find focus in my tasks instead of just, I'm going to get this floor mopped as fast as possible,
Right.
but just being there, mopping the floor
Right.
and knowing that that's my place at that hour
Right.
to be.
Right.
I've been frustrated by the fact that I was told, don't work so hard. The dirt will be there tomorrow. Don't work so hard. And I didn't know what that meant
Yeah.
because I couldn't, like, if I didn't do it, nobody did.
Right.
I
Which
don't
is,
like,
but this is exactly what the pastor's issue is don't work so hard. But what he's seeing is if he doesn't do it, nobody will. Mm-hmm. Right. That's the issue. But it's better for everyone if you don't work so hard. Even if what you think needs to be done doesn't get done. Yeah.
and like, I went to the park with my kids. I went walking with them. We did lots of crafts. Like, I was constantly with them and teaching them and being with them. And then I was told not to work so hard. So I don't know how.
But a big part of what I'm trying to say is about the
How
mental
to
pressure you
undo
put
it.
on yourself to achieve things in a given amount of time,
Mm-hmm.
which ultimately leads to you ignoring other things that are more important.
Mm-hmm.
So what this question is about how do I, as a pastor's wife, deal with the fact that my husband's never home? That's what's going on. Right.
Okay.
And then my husband's view of pastoral ministry, what he's received from the seminary, is that that's right and that's what it should be, and we just have to sacrifice. And there's something laudable and pious and amazing about that. There's also something cult-like, manipulative, and godless about what's been done to you to use your piety in a way that's going to potentially destroy your family for the sake of an institution that itself is collapsing right now.
So perhaps
Shouldn't ignore
what
that.
needs to happen is checking out the communication that is taught about in Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus.
Valuable. Yes. Agreed.
Because then she will recognize why he's working so hard. Like, what's the mentality behind it? And she can speak to her needs in a way that he will hear it
Right.
as actually, I love you.
Mm-hmm.
You are my knight in shining armor, and all I want to do is be with you. So
Right.
can I bring a picnic dinner to church and we can eat it there tonight?
Yeah.
You know, like,
Yeah. What's really important is that
when are
this
you gonna
doesn't
be
become
home and have supper with me?
And this can't, the whole need a Bible verse thing, like, this is not a theological argument about what right and wrong is. This is you're lonely. You just got to say to your husband, you're lonely. And if he says, well, that's the price you pay, well, then I guess that's the price you pay.
I guess.
I mean, it's rough because you're married to him, right? And so you're married to each other. You got what you got. But getting into a philosophical debate about who your neighbor is isn't the solution to I miss you.
Yeah. And I guess that's where, for me, it was, so I felt like we had time, we carved out time, even though you weren't home during the day. Like, half the world, more than half the world, well, maybe not now, but a 9-to-5 job is what men have done for a long time. And even when they were farmers, they were away and then they came home for meals. And I just tried to make it so that my schedule was home when he was home.
Right.
And
Well, this
so,
is like another side of
'cause-
this, is that, like, survival is real. Like, and we're maybe going to be more in the face of that in the next 10 years than we have been before. But, like, at a certain point, no, you don't get to enjoy this life. I mean,
Right.
there are moments you can learn to be content, but if you're looking for the Martha Stewart cover shot of experience, is not going to happen, at least not without faking it. And then you can't maintain the charade very long. So, like, put yourself in a situation where you're living in Little House of the Big Woods, and Pa's got to go out every day because he's just got to go out every day.
And honestly, that I did
if he doesn't,
read
you won't
that.
have food.
I read that series,
Oh.
and I took note of how Ma structured her days.
Mm-hmm.
I took note of how she socialized and what the kids did and how she had the kids kind of involved in the family economy. There are a lot of valuable lessons in Little House on the Prairie as far as home management is concerned, because I didn't have that. All I was told was, wow, you work too hard, you should stop. And it's like, honestly, if the baby soils his bedding, I'm going to wash it. If the bathroom is dirty
Right.
and somebody has thrown up in the toilet, I'm going to clean it. Like, it's not healthy not to clean the messes.
Right.
So please stop telling me not to work so hard. Maybe tell me, wow, you've had a hard week.
Yeah.
What an amazing mother you're being and loving your children through this. Like, I loved reading to my children. That was a priority for me. So I'm not sure how, like I said, I wouldn't have done it differently.
Right.
So I don't know. Yeah, I guess I'm really sensitive about the like absorbed in your child and what that means. Like, are you actually absorbed in being a mother? Are you
for her
absorbed
question? No, her question is
in
that
the idea.
I mean, they
of
may
being
be.
a mother?
Yes. The issue is that they are ignoring the absence of the father by putting all the emotion and energy that should be in that reciprocal relationship, that should be supporting the children, into the children. And ultimately, that's not going to be a very good ecosystem. I'm fully aware of that, or convinced of that, because you're going to demand of the children more emotional fulfillment than they can possibly provide you.
Right. And I see that. I would fear that the stay-at-home mother who recognizes that her husband is working outside of the home to bring home
The bacon.
money.
Yeah, the bacon, sure.
So that she can stay home and do the work at home.
Needs to
And
do
care
the work
for
at
like
home.
it
Yeah.
needs to.
Yeah.
You have to have this ecosystem.
Yeah.
And when we start to begrudge the fact that the husband isn't cleaning the toilet,
Right.
like we're getting our mindset is getting skewed.
Sure.
Because we're not appreciating what he is doing.
Yeah.
So that we can be home to clean the toilet.
Right.
Like,
right. And that's probably pretty important here in this, is that contentment and seeing the value of what your husband is doing as valuable, praying for contentment with that, is as that princess principle there. I mean, that is the gentle and quiet spirit that says, I married a pastor. My husband wants to be a good pastor. That's awesome. I'm suffering. But it's for this. But not to the level where you would deny yourself the ability to say, I miss you. I'm lonely.
He's still a man. He's your man.
Yeah.
And so there's no reason that the romantic affection cannot be displayed or expressed.
What I want to really make sure I clarify on too, like what gets me going is like, so the man who is a pastor in this way, the congregation is going to take advantage of him. Mm-hmm. They are going to take advantage of him. And that is what bothers me. That's not righteous. That's not justice. That's not good measurement. That's not what God would have us do. Right. Paul didn't go to Ephesus and let them take advantage of him and work him to the bone in things that he was pressed into. He led. He chose. He directed. He taught. He was the author of where he was going and what he was doing. He was not beholden to a bunch of expectations that were just being pressed upon him in the belief that if he didn't do it, the church wouldn't survive. Woe to me if I don't preach the gospel, to be sure. Not woe to me if I don't go to every committee meeting. Not woe to me if the bulletin has a typo in it this week. Right? Nobody cares about your bulletin. Nobody cares. They really don't. They want one. They'll be mad if there's no bulletin, but they honestly, no one's coming back to your church because your bulletin was good. Like it's not why people do anything.
But then,
and we put a lot
of heart it's
into
not necessarily my place as your wife.
No, correct.
To be the one to say,
nope.
You don't need to care so much about the bulletin. Nobody cares.
No.
My place as your wife is to be like, I like that you have what you've done on the bulletin.
Yeah. Amen. To see the work and laud it.
You spent a lot of time on this, and I see it.
Yep. For sure. That's good. Yeah. To laud him for what he is doing, and then be honest about your loneliness, and whatnot.
I miss you. Can I help you fold bulletins this week?
Right. Yeah, that's a good one right there.
I mean, I don't know why it's...
Write that one down.
I don't know.
I have known men who would maybe not let her. I mean, there are men out there like, no, I only fold the bulletins. I know what I'm doing. So and
then it's like, well, you know what? You married him.
Yeah, you did.
That's the guy you were created for.
Yeah.
And so somewhere deep down inside of you, there's the ability to deal with that.
Yeah. Yeah, it's good. And there's a good reason why you did it that God has in store for you. Yeah. Yeah.
But
take note, singles.
You said that if he is a workaholic, his congregation will take advantage of him.
Yes.
And in my impression, like my understanding is that as you father your family, so you will father the church. So if you are neglecting your family, eventually you will neglect the church.
Yeah. Yeah.
The busyness will be busy just to be busy.
I would even state that the busyness is probably neglecting the church. You're so busy that you aren't able to see the people.
Yeah.
That. So I'm gonna go Tim Ferriss here for a second. Not that Tim Ferriss is the end all be all of all things. But he said something once upon a time that really struck with me. And initially it stuck with me in the sense of I was watching someone else in a office work environment who was always saying, I'm so busy. There, I found my pen. I was looking for it. He said, I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I'm so busy. I'm so busy.
Okay.
And this person got less done than anybody else. And so when Tim Ferriss said, anyone who says I'm busy is lazy. They're lazy. They will not do the work to manage their time. That struck me first as, okay, I see this, that's bad. And then it has increasingly also been like, whenever someone says to me, I know you're busy, Pastor, it's like, why do you think I'm busy? Like, you don't see me except on Sunday. Why do you think I'm busy? I am busy. It's true.
You know
but
what,
like,
though?
I don't need to go around and tell people I'm busy. And busy should never be in the way of you. Not just my wife, but for sure you. But like, you are here. You need me. I'm not that busy. I have appointments. I can't meet at this time. I'm going to do this. I like to have 15 minutes to read. I do. I enjoy that. Right. Or the other Sunday is like, I'm going to eat lunch right now, but you're welcome to sit down. Let's talk. I'm going to eat though in front of you and not offer you food. It's Sunday at 1, right? I'm going to, busyness is like a form of avoiding the issues. And so, I don't know this guy from Adam. I have no idea, but I know that all the things I was so busy with in my first 5 years, I don't even do now. Like some of it is like, I got to set up a bulletin cycle so that it'll repeat every year and it's done. Like let's add the hymns, right? Maybe we'll adjust the font a little bit this year because it's getting old, but like, no, I don't need to spend 3 hours a week on the bulletin. I do have a secretary but she's just got a repeat cycle going on too on this thing. All of the time that I put into like trying to craft Christmas Eve liturgies or this or that, or again, the sermon preparation, not as reading the Bible, but as like crafting this
making
thesis statement. Right. Or the meetings, so much of that stuff is just a distraction from the reality. And so, if you've got too many meetings to go to, yeah, you're wasting a ton of time. You're wasting a ton of time. Everyone's wasting a ton of time at those meetings. What are they actually deciding in that? And I get it that the culture doesn't change immediately, but the only way that's going to change is if you decide, I don't like this.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think this is important. I'll go, but not because I think I have to. I'll go because I intend to stop it at some point, right? Like, yeah, so the expectation, the previous pastor did all this stuff. I'm either going to say, like, no, I'm not going to mow the lawn. You know, you didn't. That wasn't in my document. I just got here. You didn't tell me that beforehand, right? I'm not going to mow the lawn, but yeah, okay, I'll go to these meetings. But at these meetings, I'm going to talk about what a waste of time these meetings are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so busy. I mean, go Google that one if you want to. How is busy lazy? There's all sorts of work on it, and it is a way of avoiding issues that really need to be dealt with. So I can't fix this, so I'll go be busy over here. Or I don't want to fix this. I refuse to see this, and so I'll go be busy over here. Right? Why was I so intent on producing? What was I ignoring? And we know now. If you're a fan, you should know now. I've said it enough. I don't need to say it now. But yeah, I was avoiding.
Yeah.
I was avoiding
The
me
pain.
and the pain. Yeah. And so
I remember you mentioning that, and so I took a time. If you are busy, you're then lazy.
busyness is a form of laziness. Is the best way to think of it.
Busyness is a form of laziness, and so I looked at my life and I thought about, like, am I busy, or is my life now? Maybe this is just you rubbing off on me over the years, or is my life whole and full?
Yeah, right.
And honestly, I looked at what I do, and it really is. I have an extremely well-rounded life. I get to experience so many different vocational things, from landscaping to plumbing to housekeeping and cooking to child psychology and teaching. So many different vocations. My life is whole. It's also very full. Nothing I do, well, I shouldn't say nothing, but very few things I do are pointless. Perhaps you could say making our bed is pointless because then it gets unmade again. But honestly, it keeps the spiders out. So there you go.
Boom. Drop the mic.
But my point in even bringing it up is it's kind of like, so I'm coming at it from a perspective of those begrudging pastors' wives, where they're wanting to live the American lifestyle, where it's like, my husband and I are a team. We do everything together. We're best friends, and we're workmates, and we, you know,
every night's a date.
Yeah, this thing where it's like, when do you actually live? Like, when does he make the money?
Right.
And when do you, I don't know, fold the laundry? I don't know. I'm not sure what the equivalent of that would be, but the division of labor just seems to be lost on America.
Yeah.
And I don't think that it's a bad thing for us to say, my vocation is beautiful, even if I don't love every second of it.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
You don't have to allow the grouchy pastor's wife who's just
Don't be bitter. Don't be bitter.
To rub off on you.
But you can, and that's just her questions in a little bit like, how can I not be bitter? And the answer is, well, ask Jesus and don't want to be bitter. I mean, a big part of not being bitter is just deciding I don't want to be. And you may still have it and you're going to fight against it, but by not wanting it, it's not going to win.
So all those years I had people telling me, you're so busy. Stop working so hard. And it's like, well, if I don't wash the dishes, then how are we going to serve supper? Yeah. I'm sorry, I don't see the practicality in that. But a wise woman came into my life and she said, let me do your dishes.
Yeah.
And she, by doing them in her way, transformed my dishwashing habit. It was just a weekend stay of her in my family. It was like, you wise woman, Titus 2 woman, came in and shared this knowledge with me that instead of making me feel like I'm not enough, showed me a better way. So let us be that to each other as we help each other. Same woman, let me fold your laundry for you. I love folding laundry because then I can pray for each person who wears that piece of laundry.
That's so sweet.
What a beautiful thing.
Yeah, right.
She showed me how to rejoice in my task.
Yeah.
A task that is never ending and seems so repeatable.
But it's a full life.
But it's
full life.
full.
Yeah.
And I have a beautiful amount of laundry because I have a beautiful amount of people that fit in all those clothes.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm thankful for each of them.
I really like everything you said because it contextualizes the busyness as a form of laziness thing, because that phrase has limits, right? And so a full day is not a busy day.
No.
It's a full day, right? But if I'm so busy, I'm not going to be able to have a full day.
It's frantic. Busy is frantic.
Yeah, right,
and I don't want frantic.
No, don't need frantic. And that's where, again, young pastors, I mean, he's not unique in this. Like there's a frantic need to grow and fix the church. That is, it's not helpful to you or to anyone else. And the sooner you ease off on that, the more you're going to enjoy the work. Even though there will definitely be places that you don't enjoy the work. I want to move us ahead. That was a good long answer on that one here. Thank you for your tears. Homesteading lady asked this question. We did that one. I went to the wrong one. She was C. Here we go. Song of Hannah asked Rev and Mrs. Fisk, how do I respect and appreciate my husband for being the sole provider of our family while also encouraging him to seek avenues of promotion and higher pay? I don't want to wound him, but the budget is very tight. 1,000 thank yous to you both for all that you do. Frisbee had a piece, a statement that I thought was, I mean, this is just kind of like how do you have a conversation thing, but the tact of, I don't even know if this is true, but I know you love what you do, but I feel like your skills are not as used as they could be. You got skill. You're underappreciated. But I don't know. I mean, if he really loves cutting holes in metal, and he really loves how he can check in and check out, and he doesn't mind not having a boat and living month to month, I mean, I don't know that you can encourage him to change that. There's a whole nother side of issues which may have nothing to do with this question, which is men in general in society right now have very little aspiration. They are completely checked out. And as long as I get the game on, or to play my games, or to go out to eat, or whatever it is, their thing that they're escaping with, they are not inspired to be, grow, do, succeed. Partially because they've found out that they can't. Like they've tried and they got beat down so much that they're just kind of like, I give up. I'll cut holes in metal. I'm happy that way. And again, some of that's good. It was good. You like working, tying metal together. Great. So, I mean, it's a hard conversation. How do you have this conversation? So maybe to spin the question a little differently, this does seem to be kind of a repeat question though, for you. It's like, how do you tell your husband something he doesn't want to hear? That is not easy.
I'm trying to think of an example of when I've done that. And so
successfully.
Yeah. So that I can, come up with how it worked out. I know just in general, timing is everything.
Amen. Yeah. When do you have this conversation?
So gauging your emotional state, What are you focused on? Do you feel defeated from the day already? Should I pile more on? Are the kids being distraction? Are we able to focus on the two of us at that moment? So those are good things to keep in mind when I'm talking about stuff that, you're maybe not in agreement with. I like what Frisbee said, and I think it goes along with what you would find in Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus.
Yeah.
Definitely taking the time to compliment is really important. Building that relationship of just, I'm your cheerleader, I'm your number one fan. And then you will trust me enough so that when I come to you and say, you know what, hun, I've been doing the budget for this month and it's really tight. I don't know what to do. So that's what you do. That's what I do.
I don't know what to do.
I don't know what to do. Fix it, mister. Fix it.
I'm worried about the budget as opposed to I have a fix for your problem.
Right.
Yeah.
You are the leader. Lead us now because this is where we need help.
Right.
Definitely recognizing that your husband is the capable and powerful knight in shining armor that you have been waiting for and wanting. That will show forth in how you talk to him and how he receives it. Something that happened yesterday, I had some dusting that needed to be done in the kids' bedroom. And I didn't have time to do it. And so what I did was I told one of our children who is very neat and tidy. And I said, you know what? I would really love to have your help dusting the bookshelf in your bedroom. Your attention to detail will bless our house as you do this task for us. Would you be so kind as to help me? And she, was able to do it because I told her affirming words that made it like, oh, well, I can do this.
I am good at that.
I've been recognized.
Yeah.
And what was the wording that we were talking about earlier in the show where you don't recognize how good you are at something?
Oh, yeah, imposter syndrome.
And, do away with imposter syndrome. Build them up.
Yeah.
I did not know this for the longest time, but after reading Men Are From Mars and Women Are From Venus, I learned that men, for all their power and all of their strength, are super fragile inside. Our culture has not given you men a way to express your emotions, your fears, your struggles. We've told you men don't cry, so get over it. And it eats away at the inside. And so therefore we have these men who are self-doubting and not feeling as powerful as they look. And so if we're able to build them up, like that is our power over man, is if we build them up and show them how powerful they are, then they're capable of using the power for good and for service to us because they do only want to please us and make us happy. And so, that's their ultimate goal, whether it's because they want to make more babies and populate the world or whatever, but it's, that's their desire is for women to see their worth and love them and be happy with them.
Yeah. That's a good answer. We got 2 more questions and like 15 minutes left, and I really want to get through them both, so I'm going to move us on here. And this one we skipped last week, and so I definitely want to get to it. It is Bible question. Did the fear of Jesus, the fear of the Lord, exist before the fall? Genesis 3:6 says that when Eve saw the tree was desired to make one wise. This took me straight to the Proverbs where it says the fear of Jesus is the beginning of wisdom. It's Proverbs 1:7. My initial thoughts are that fear did exist, but it was good. That's a good answer. Maybe the question is, I think it still is good. We just are pansies. Maybe the question is, what did wisdom look like before the fall? Just curious if you have any thoughts or comments on tying these 2 passages together. So in my really messed up Bible thing here that is still not working well and only giving you part of the screen. Proverbs 1 verse 7 says, the fear of the Lord is the beginning of knowledge, but fools despise wisdom and discipline. I think the fear of the Lord being the beginning of wisdom may be a Psalter quote. I mean, the idea does show up other places here, but the question really is about this fear of the Lord, and make no mistake, it is the primary word for fear in Hebrew. It means afraid. It means terrified. It actually means to shake, to be shaking, to be trembling because you're so afraid. And so, of course, we think, since we want God to be love, which the Bible does say that he is, that therefore that would mean that God does not have any cause to be afraid of. And yet this goes against clear passages in the Bible. Jesus says, I'll tell you who to fear. Don't fear the devil. Fear God, and the one who can cast you into hell. And, excuse me, I have a... excuse me. Sorry, everybody. Couldn't avoid that one. Couldn't avoid that one. You also have passages like John where he says, perfect love drives out fear. And so, in fact, but let's go back to Jesus. I'll show you who to fear. Like 3 sentences later, he says, therefore fear not. Right. So it's a complex idea. Okay? And the worst thing we can do is to make one side of the idea go away so we can have the other side of the idea. What we want is to have the two ideas hanging together in tension. Your own answer is very, very good. It's that fear is good. Fear is not bad. Fear is good. Okay. There is a type of fear that is bad. This is fear of man. Fear of man is bad. Fear of not being God yourself is bad. So this way, anxiety isn't. The fear of the Lord is not anxiety, okay? It's not stress. But there is a side in which the fear of the Lord is the knowledge that evil is evil. It is trust in who God really is. And without trust in who God really is, without fear of God, you can't rightly trust him. You're missing. Your trust will be weaker if you are not afraid of him. If you never experience that moment where it's like, I really should burn. Well, then you can't trust forgiveness. You won't even know what it is, right? So notice it doesn't say the fear of Jesus is all knowledge. It says the beginning of knowledge. It's the path of wisdom. There is a God and you're not him, right? That's it. That's it. Oh, wait. There's an almighty God and I'm not really him. And frankly, there's no partiality. He will treat me like everybody else until I'm adopted as his son, and then now he'll treat me like a son, which is different than he'll treat a fool, an enemy. So I think your answer is good. I think there probably is more work I need to do. The Lord, God willing, will let me do on the fear of Jesus as an Old Testament concept. But let me suggest to you that the use of the word, if you're watching the screen, knowledge, wisdom, and instruction, I prefer the word discipline there, are repetitions from know, wisdom, and instruction up in verse 2. All right. And so somewhere in this, the fear of Jesus is defined as the harmony between these three distinct words, knowledge, wisdom, and discipline. And those are not the same word. Those are not synonyms for each other. They are distinctions from each other. So somewhere between, might I even say, mind, heart, and hands, fear is the proper expression of what man is and does. And this can be good or evil. Why do you brush your teeth? It's not trembling fear, but it's because you are aware that if you don't, something will happen, right? Mm-hmm. So fear is a good motivator. Why should Adam and Eve have not eaten the tree? Fear of Jesus. Mm. What did they not have the moment they reached for the tree? Fear of Jesus. So it was supposed to be there. It would have been true knowledge. Instead, they believed in a false knowledge that would be better than God's knowledge. So it remains. So it's just nothing's changed, which is the question, right? Yeah, no, nothing's changed. The fear of God is a healthy recognition that he's God and you're not. And thank God for that. thank God I can be afraid of my God because, and this is really key, if I can't be afraid of my God, then why would my enemies be afraid of my God?
Mm-hmm.
How can he save me if I can't? I mean, he has to be stronger. He has to be more powerful. I have to cower in his presence a little bit. And then look at what Peter does when he sees Jesus. Look what Isaiah does when the vision compares to him. Ezekiel has his vision and he lies on the ground for like 7 days. Doesn't move. It's just, I don't even know what I just saw. Fear of Jesus. Good stuff. Right? What Abraham is visited by the 3 men. What's he do? He runs inside. Let's get some food quick. Feed these guys. So there is an earnest hastiness. Hasty is a bad word, but there is an earnest inspiration that only fear can provide, and the opposite of this would be what Luther called carnal security. Right? To be secure in your flesh, you don't want to be secure in your flesh, and that's where the fear of Jesus is going to begin to open up for you. The wisdom of seeing your flesh for what it is, repenting of it, and fighting against it. So. Can we move on to the next question, which maybe has more?
That was very insightful. Thank you.
To shout on, speak on. Last question for the day. RevFisk, right now I'm feeling like Peter when Christ pulls him out of the water. And it's kind of like, wow. I mean, like, are you walking on water right now? Like, I can't even imagine what that would feel like. Or are you talking about like you're drowning and you need help? Maybe that's more where he's at. For a while, I have been extremely concerned with and focused on understanding what is happening in the LCMS with, quote, radical Lutherans. That is a movement. So one more of these movements in our little corner where we're going to fight over the dust that no one pays attention to and destroy ourselves. Not that they're all right. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying like it's
Is he going to define what radical Lutherans are?
No, but I can in
will
a
you
moment.
please?
I will.
Okay,
he's kind of going to get into it though. And those who hold what seems to be an antinomian position.
Okay, so then that needs to be defined too.
Yes. It's so eclectic and scholastic. It is everything I hate about preaching. And when I say law and gospel and how we've just turned this into a theory that isn't helping us, like this is like a high level scholastic argument about that theory.
Okay.
So you need lots of understanding to argue about this.
Okay.
This isn't like I walked in off the street and I opened my Bible and, oh my goodness, let's argue about the 30 use of the law. Like, no, you need years of development in law gospel jargon to get to this point.
So anti is no.
Yeah, good. Nomos.
Nomos. Is that name?
Nope. No, it means law.
Oh.
So the antinomian is the one who decides that the Christian does not need the law. Okay? The Christian does not need the law. It means
you're saved by grace. It's done.
You're free.
You don't need the commandments. Don't really matter. Don't memorize.
Don't need officially. You do not need to preach the gospel to Christians, or even let me say it this way. That's what I meant.
Okay.
Let me say it this way, which is even better. You should not preach the law to Christians. Now I hope. Oh, I should take this off so you can see my wife's face. All right, I'll do it here. You should never preach the law to Christians. That's a law.
Right.
Antinomianism is self-destructive. Right. It's clearly rejected. It's full of idiocy. So the radical Lutheran movement in the LCMS, so far as it exists, definitely has antinomian tendencies. They have people who can sound an awful lot like antinomians, and they might well be antinomians. Okay. That said, I've not met one of them in the LCMS who's for abortion. I haven't met any who are openly advocating women's ordination. They're not advocating homosexual marriage. That's antinomianism in practice. Okay? Not, I don't think Christians should have to have the third use of the law tail into the end of the sermon in order to inspire them. I think instead the second use followed by the gospel only method, that's the right one. Okay, I think both of those arguments are made by nincompoops who don't preach what the Bible says.
Okay, so wait a minute. These people, in layman terms, people who say there should be no law preached to Christians say there should not be abortion.
Well, no.
There should not.
No. So what I was saying is that so if people who say that the radical Lutherans in the LCMS are antinomian,
Okay.
aren't seeing that the ELCA is like the definition of antinomian. They actually are antinomian.
Okay, right.
They have removed
Now
the
I
actual
gotcha.
law.
Okay.
There is no actual law. The antinomians are just saying how we shouldn't talk about law, but they haven't actually removed the law from what they think truth is. Okay, the radical Lutheran ones.
Oh, radical.
Sorry.
Okay. Now tell me.
The radical Lutherans in the LCMS,
Right.
as much as they might be on some kind of philosophical theory-based we need less law trip,
Yeah.
they still think the Ten Commandments are true.
Okay. So then they're radical because they wear head coverings? They're radical because...
No, that would be too much law, which I would agree with, actually, because it's a false law. That's a different topic. No, the idea behind radical Lutherans is that the gospel is a radical idea, that God is radically merciful, that that the prodigal son is the story of the prodigal son and the father's radical, unreasonable forgiveness of him is who God is, and that this is, for them, the good news of Jesus Christ, the most important piece of the good news of Jesus Christ, the justification of the sinner before an angry God is the epicenter of what we believe, teach, confess, and preach. I'm kind of for a lot of this. Well, because then they will have things they'll say sometimes like you don't have to preach the third use of the law. And then that gets taken.
The third use of the law is the guide, which is like a map.
Right, which you totally can't control, and that's why the argument is the stupidest scholastic argument.
But that's the goal of the law, is to get to where you're doing the good just because it's good.
Yeah.
So they're saying that we cannot preach doing good just because it's good.
No, because what they're arguing against is the law, gospel, law, preaching dynamic that functions, Kamer homiletics, as an attempt to manipulate the Spirit of God by controlling a dogmatic theory over and above the text you're preaching, no matter what text you're preaching, which is why I think the entire argument is tempest in a teapot. It's in a corner. It's us being, let's fight over our little pea spot on the barren wasteland while the barbarians come down and attack us, rather than recognize that what we're doing is playing a jargonistic philosophy game with each other and attacking each other over it when we really don't disagree that much about things like the actual law.
Right.
Now, that's not to say that there aren't some people in the radical Lutheran camp in the LCMS who in fact are antinomian and would advocate some of the things that we think are against actual law. At the same time, there's a bunch of people that are going to say, we need more law, there's not enough law, and oh, by the way, no, you can't tell me that like my TV use is idolatry. Oh no, you can't tell me that Halloween is wrong, right? So at the same time,
the rubber just hit the road there.
At the same time, well, this is the thing about the legalist, because the other side of this is legalism. You got actual libertines, you got actual legalists, and they're arguing with each other over Lutheran doctrine. Okay, and then in the middle, you got a bunch of people led astray by this who are scared that it's really a big deal, and it kind of is, but it's kind of not. The legalist is always going to break the rules. He'll have the rules that you need to keep. There's the rules you need to keep. But then, what's good for you is not good for me. And they will have places where then you can point out how, hey, do you notice how, or let me put this way. The Sons of Solomon Discipline, pray 9 Psalms a day. Well, that's a bit law heavy, don't you think? Okay, well, that's the issue there, right? Neither side of this is authentically representing biblical faith. They are taking a perceived biblical distinction between law and gospel, as well as a perceived understanding of the 3 ways the Holy Spirit uses the law, and they're turning it into like a fight club for nerds.
Yeah.
Okay.
And that's too bad.
And I don't mean to. I mean, a little bit, this is what our friend here has been caught up in.
Yeah, okay. So what does our friend want to know about?
Because he's been caught up in this, and he's been super worried about the antinomians. He's just gotten all sorts of worried about it. And you know what? If you got a pastor who's preaching that abortion's cool or that marriage doesn't exist, this is a major problem. The LCMS, as an organization, ought to have the capacity to deal with it. We don't. Well, welcome to the club. This isn't new. What do you call praise and worship, and what it's been doing to us? Why is that less of an issue? Why this, not other issues? You're dealing with the heterodox church body. There is no orthodox church body in America right now, not in a pure sense of the word. Everyone's got their problems. So why are you afraid about the collapse of the church body rather than be concerned about your local congregation and how faithful it is to the scriptures and the Lutheran confessions? That to me seems like a more important thing to do than try to police the internet for people who might not understand the third use of the law the way that the confessions actually talk about it. Okay, so he's been pulled into this game. I love you. I don't know you. This isn't about you, right? This is about a game that I think is a red herring. Both sides are wrong, but they're not so wrong that it matters nearly as much as both sides think they are. In either side, if the extreme were taken to its full end, would it be bad if the whole LCMS went that? Yes, that would be bad. Are we going to? No, not really. No one's listening. There's really not that many people listening to this debate. You have a bunch of evangelicals hearing the gospel from the radical Lutherans and joining kind of somewhere, I don't know, churches that are maybe Lutheran, maybe not. And you have a bunch of LCMS churches that love their liturgy in a Bronze Age maybe kind of way. That's inside term there. Who are going to continue being LCMS churches policing the internet in case anyone said something wrong somewhere. Right? And
so you're saying that radical Lutheranism is appealing to the evangelical.
That's what they're trying to do.
Converting. Oh, they're trying to.
Intentionally.
Are they doing it? Are they actually successful?
What defines success? I mean, their goal is to reach out to evangelicalism with an awareness of the pure gospel of Jesus Christ being a freedom.
Because that approach, I would think, would be very, attractive to the evangelical mindset. Mm-hmm. However, once you get past the milk of this radical idea, you're going to want something deeper, I think.
But what you have with a lot of evangelicals is they've been so burned by the legalistic preaching that they have that they then become a little bit resistant to the idea that the law is good, which is where the complex fight is happening here. And then you also though have those who know the law is good, but I think they don't get quite as upset about those who just need to tell someone else what they're supposed to do. This is the thing for me about those who don't like the radical Lutherans is like, if only you were so pure, I'd be more willing to listen to you. Mm-hmm. But I know if I go into your life and your congregation, I could pick holes in it too.
Is this
because
a
we
man
can.
thing?
No, this is an LCMS. We like to criticize rather than build thing. This is our theology is based upon pointing out how other people are wrong thing. This is until I tell you about Lutheranism, I got to tell you about Roman Catholicism so I can tell you why it's wrong, so I can tell you why we exist. That's what it is. Okay? We could, our confessions do, but we currently don't have a positive identity. We only have an over against identity. We can't exist without our enemies. And there's a point at which that's kind of true, but like then we got the enemies are other Christians. As opposed to, I don't know, the devil.
Yeah.
Right? And to be sure, is heterodoxy brought about by the devil? Yes, it is. Are these other Christians possibly led astray? Yes. Are they the false teachers that Jude talks about? Sometimes. But no, there are Baptists out there that are going to be in paradise. Baptist preachers going to be in paradise. They were dead wrong about a whole bunch of stuff, but like, you might be too. And this is where, the more we act like we're arguing from a position of purity, the more I'm like, LCMS, we're over. We're so over. We need to all repent. Every side. Yeah. Me too. I'm not excluded from this. The whole thing I'm doing right now is like, I need to repent more. That's my entire. So when I hear this, like, well, we're right, you're wrong, and it's like a scholastic debate that you need 15 years of seminary education and have to read the Book of Concord and Pieper and all this other stuff to even enter the conversation. It's like, when was the last time you prayed?
Well, that's why I'm like,
Psalm 2?
Maybe men, we should be writing this on a page document and submitting it to an editor so it can be published instead of just sending it out into the ether.
It's just so
where it's not.
It's
I mean,
just
like,
so misguided.
Really
What I would much prefer, what would be so much more useful to all of us, is if someone wrote a book on Article 5, I think it's Article 5 of the Formula in Concord, in which you actually took us through the article on law and gospel and the 30s of the law and just talked about what it meant, rather than talk about all these theories about what it means based upon a liberal homiletician from the 1960s who we kicked out during Seminex, and yet we still are letting him drive the way that we talk about homiletics. It just... And everyone kind of knows that, but then we do it anyway. Anyway, I'm as worked up
for
in
your
it because
question.
it's just such a distraction. And I'm not saying that either side is right. Each side has something they're saying that is right. And each side has something they're saying or allowing to be said or not facing in their own closet that isn't right. And I'm going to point you, if you're mad at me and you're an LCMS pastor out there, go read the last 5 pages of Adolf Caberlet's The Quest for Holiness, in which he is very clear and it's wonderful. He says, if you're going to rightly distinguish law and gospel, you're going to have one guy on your left tell you you're a legalist. You're going to have one guy on your right tell you you're a libertine. And you're going to look at them both, and they're going to hate each other, and they're both going to hate you. So I'm going to stand in the middle of this argument with Adolf Caberlet and say, like, look, if you're going to rightly distinguish law and gospel, somebody's going to think you're a libertine. Someone's going to think you're a legalist. Hello, I've been called both. Well, good. That's good. I'm in good company
Good
then.
sign.
Right? It means I'm speaking it in proper distinction. Yeah. Where one is always true and the other is always true. And you need them both, and only one saves. But the other one's beautiful. And when you're saved into loving it more than hating it. So we haven't gotten to his question at all. But I said this on Wednesday's Bible study, right? Which I think this is so important. I couldn't believe it came out of my mouth. Jesus doesn't say, love your neighbor as yourself so that you'll feel bad for not doing it. That's not what it's there for. Will you feel bad for not doing it? Does the second use of the law exist? Yes, it does. But why does Jesus say love your neighbor as yourself?
Because it's good.
It's good.
And that, my friends, is the third use of the law.
He wants you to. He wants you to. It's just, is that okay? He saved you, right? Like, you're under grace, right? So now he can want you to do something without you having to justify yourself with it? Is that possible? I mean, in theory, that's what we believe. But this whole argument is kind of based upon, no, people are too stupid to even live under grace, right? And you either have to, like, just make them only hear grace ever, or you have to make sure that they don't ever get the idea that grace is all there is. Like, it's like, well, wait. What happened to, oh Lord, I love your law? What happens to I rest in your law? And that doesn't mean we have to button everything up and don't let anyone talk or make everything in order. It's to see that loving your neighbor is worth desiring and not arguing about which use of the Holy Spirit matters just because I said love your neighbor's good. Like, who cares which use of the law that is? The only reason those distinctions exist is to point out how God does, in fact, crush us with the law over against Roman Catholic issues that we were dealing with, which aren't really anything anyone in our congregation is having a conflict about right now. Or those who were saying at the time, the Antinomians, you never need to speak the law again. And no, obviously you need to catechize people in what truth, because they're going to love it. They're going to love it when they learn how to walk in the Word of God. They're going to love it when they learn how the way that is narrow is in fact straight, right? So yes, you're going to teach the law because it's order, it's beauty. The law is beauty, it's truth. Is it saving truth? No.
My question is, how do these antinomian peoples deal with where Paul says that the law revealed his sin so that then he could repent of it? Or so he says that I knew no sin. I
wouldn't have known what sin was until that's all before you convert. So the second use is sort of the only use they believe in, right? So that's just it. Jesus said, love your neighbor as yourself, so you'll feel bad for not doing it, so that you can know Jesus saved you. Amen. Go home. And what you've done, and this is where the other side of this is like, wait, radical Lutherans, that's kind of like stripping the law of its goodness, don't you think? Like, it's like just kind of gutting the law. It's just there to condemn you. The law, lex semper accusat. The law always accuses. Yeah. But.
And then how do they deal with when Luther's talking about, like, daily I rise to sin. And I
die to sin.
I die to sin.
Rise to live in righteousness.
And so how do they justify that?
It just means freedom. And
how
they would reread
know
that through freedom.
That you've sinned, or
this is where, go back to the start here. The antinomian can't actually exist. they will become a law unto themselves.
Okay.
They will have laws like you can't preach the law.
Right.
So ultimately, the antinomian is a fictitious.
Big fat waste of time.
It's a fictitious idea. It is a theory. It is an ideal that cannot be. It's like, it's kind of like how atheism as well. Wants to somehow prove there is no God, which you can't do. And you can prove that you haven't seen one. But you're a little speck of dust. But like, you cut off your own feet at a certain point with your argument. And so even the one who says I'm an antinomian can't be. That doesn't mean you let them talk or you think that they should teach at seminary or you don't point out the issue, right? And talk to them about how they're wrong. But to act as if this is the great threat, wherein the real antinomianism that does exist is when the Ten Commandments cease to be taught as an actual truth. Which again, you go into any of these places where they're theorizing about third use, second use, and how they don't need a third use. And as much as I disagree with whatever that theory finally got to, because I confess the formula of Concord, if you ask them if you can steal from them, they'll say, no, why would you do that? They're not against the actual law. They're against a theory about how you manipulate the law in sermons. It's all a homiletics debate. All a homiletics debate at this point, at least within the Missouri Synod. And I think it's leaven. I think there's leaven on both sides. And I think both sides probably could deal with a little less of the homiletics debate and a little more of just praying the Psalms every day in Jesus' name. And I think that would make manifest strides and benefits in all the dialogue about how we preach. So let's get to his question. Which is kind of, we've kind of dealt with it. He says, this is a topic important to my environment as I felt my flesh become inflamed over some time since the pastors at my previous church never preached strict law. That is, he was never really being confronted with what is good. I've begun to read the Ten Commandments and their explanations in the Catechism recently, and this has helped me put down the old Adam. So now he's oh, this is good. I've got some things I should do. Okay. I've been so focused on this because I can see how poor preaching can cripple a Christian, and I fear for the Christians that have to deal with this within our synod. Well, there's more than one kind of poor preaching. However, he says, in this study, I misplaced faith and began to idolize myself. Yeah, right. Okay. So when you view the law not as just what is good and what we get to be, and when you fail, Jesus is there, and it becomes instead your battle to become more righteous, it's going to crush you. It's going to crush you. Yeah. My heart began to think that if I did not properly tackle this problem, the souls of Christians would be ensnared by the devil. See, your involvement in this internet debate has led you to believe it relies on you. Like, it really, there's not a single layperson in the Missouri Synod whom the future of the church relies on. There's not a single pastor either. I'd like to think it's me. But no, not a single person upon whom the future of the church relies on. Well, even if the heresy goes, yes, guess what happens? In 500 years, there's a Reformation. Okay? Like Jesus got it covered. Let's stop thinking it's about us. That doesn't mean you can't repent. It doesn't mean you can't learn. It doesn't mean that there isn't a wrong and a right. But man, do we think highly of ourselves. And this is my point. So here we are, little tiny Lutheranism, little tiny speck of dust in the corner of the collapsing Western civilization, arguing over a theory that nobody understands, even ourselves, in the name of riling up consciences to think that we're going to save the church or not save the church if we don't get the right understanding of law and gospel in some sort of, again, philosophical way, as opposed to what the Bible actually says. All right. So he goes on, in trying to stamp out the devil, he caught me with the belief that the church depends on my actions. Yeah, that's why are we arguing on the internet? Because I think it matters. Could you please comment on how to properly walk the path of confronting lies? It's very easy to become overzealous in warring against evil, but at the same time, it feels traitorous or weak to shake the dust off your feet. Thank you and your family, Z. Get off the internet. If the battle's in your congregation and your pastor never, ever talks about the passage that's read out loud in the lectionary that says you shall not murder, and he's like, that's just about how you're supposed to feel bad for hating your neighbor, but it's okay, hate your neighbor. Like, confront the guy. Okay. I don't even think the radical Lutherans are saying that. if they come to a text about hating your neighbor, they're going to talk about how hate's bad. And then they're going to have like a theory discussion about homiletics in which they say, well, I don't use the third use of law. And then we all fight over that, right? Like, again, it's a red herring. You know what that means? I don't even know where that comes from. I know what it means. I don't know where it comes from.
Well, herring are fish.
I do know what it means. It's in...
Are sardines. Herring are sardines.
Are they?
Mm-hmm.
It is in a detective novel. It is a
if
tool.
If it's red, maybe it's ew.
It's a tool in a mystery.
Okay.
It is a misleading clue. Okay? So the red herring's there so that you don't see what's next to it on the table that is important, because Sherlock Holmes saw what was next to it on the table, right? But you only saw the red herring. Right?
Okay.
This argument's a red herring.
Yeah. A distraction.
Completely.
Yeah.
From the devil. I don't disagree with that.
I was going to just say that, because it's like, if we're trying to, if the devil's trying to keep us in this mind game that is known as virtual reality or internet life, then distraction is his mode of operation. And so any form, like every single form, this is the yoga pants for our dear pastor friends.
Totally pulled into it. Yeah.
You know?
So I'm going to say one other thing. If women's ordination does come as a thing in the LCMS, I could see how it could come from the radical Lutheran contingent. They are far more free on gender roles, in my experience with them, than I think they should be. But their problem is not that they're antinomians. Their problem is that they're free on gender roles. Okay, like telling them they're antinomians is a red herring. It's a distract. Talk about the actual law that they are denying and how that is wrong. That is far more important, right? So do I think that there's a libertine edge of gospel talking LCMS that has missed the boat on gender roles? Yes. Guess what? There's a major deaconess program at Fort Wayne Seminary too. So come on, guys. It's not like we're not all in this sinking ship. So if we're going to bail, where are we going to bail? We got to stop trying to put the water back in the boat because the other guy threw it out. I just really kind of put my foot in it there.
You brought up the deaconess program?
Shh.
Oh.
I was hoping nobody would notice.
Nobody noticed.
Yeah.
It makes me so angry to think that... here, let me join you in it. This is what makes me angry. That fathers have been so deceived as to have been stolen from the ability to teach their children. Mm-hmm. So now the families think that the only way to teach children so that they are prepared to receive the Lord's Supper is through a class called confirmation at church. Mm-hmm. But we cannot do it at home ourselves.
Not if you're a woman, that's for sure. You'd be usurping the pastoral office. Sorry, that was from earlier today. I'm just being a snark. And so, yeah. Yeah.
And then, so there's the degeneration of the family.
Yeah, correct.
Structure.
Correct.
And then we have these young women who love the Lord and want to serve him with their life.
Yep.
And what do?
Make them pastor, non-pastor.
We say, let's get some debt.
Yep.
Let's pull you out of your home and away from your husband, because chances are you're going to marry a pastor.
Yep.
And then you'll have a call to one congregation and he'll have a call to another.
Yeah.
And then,
you got it.
Let's see what else. Oh, and then because you're going through this rigorous study, you cannot focus on raising your children. So you must somehow magically put off making babies.
Yeah, for sure.
Until your body is older and it's harder.
Mm-hmm.
That makes me so angry.
So while we sit here, is my point. So we're going to sit here and shout about how the radical Lutherans say you don't have to preach the law as much in some certain kind of way. We're not going to notice how we're all in the same sinking ship. And the real problem is we're all antinomian when it comes to marriage. We all want to have a libertine approach to the natural order of man and woman. Call me crazy.
It's so, like, shame on old Christians for telling young Christians to wait to get married. I just, like, what? Why are we not encouraging biblical lifestyle in our young people?
Because
and
we
then
think
we
we can
scratch our heads and go,
maintain.
where's society
We think
going?
it's the
I don't
key. We think it's the key to
understand."
maintaining a first world lifestyle, not recognizing that that's being taken away. It came from different reasons and is being taken away for different reasons. It's true, a single income's hard to live on. You're not going to have as much. You can't do as much.
Yes, but why can't we tell our young people, like, instead of, don't work so hard. This is how you pray for your family in your work. This American dream of having the vacation to Mexico every winter, it's worldly. That's it.
It's a shadow.
Build your family towards paradise. Like, child, don't strap yourself with debt in this life. It's not about today. It's about eternity. Like, why is that not being told to us by our grandparents?
As they're retired and traveling. They sold the farm. They pocketed the cash. They're going to live on it. Yeah.
I was recently in a discussion with a young girl and an older woman, and the young girl had made some observations from a few days prior that caused her to pause and think, like, moving forward in my life, as I meet and engage young men, how do I not lose who I am and what I stand for in my quest to please this man or attract this man so that he'll like me? How do I maintain a firm foundation on who I am in Christ and not be swayed by what the world tells me I should do in order to attract? So that then, therefore, I can attract a husband who is godly and going to be a good head and someone I can submit to. The older woman's advice was, wait till you're older to get married.
Wow.
Disgusting. I'm done now. I will stop because I don't want to get angrier.
Oh, what would your advice be?
My advice is, I'm so thankful I married my husband at 18 because we grew up together. Our marriage was founded from the very beginning only on Christ because we didn't know each other very well, but we knew that we were both individually committed to following Christ in whatever he put before us, being firm in our faith. And so we, as committed individuals, decided that founding our relationship on the forgiveness of Christ could do us no wrong. And so we stood together, facing in the same direction, looking up at the cross of Christ, and we grew together through the years. Instead of growing apart and then trying to, like,
shove it together.
smash two very individual lives and minds into one.
Yeah. Stephanie throws out the phrase, seek ye first the kingdom. And I think, this is a little different from where you were at, but, and I don't want to diminish what you just said, but so seek ye first the kingdom. This is the kind of question now that our corner argument that is a red herring. Well, is that law or gospel? And you can go grammar on it. Well, it says seek you seek the kingdom. So that's law. Okay, what's the kingdom? Well, that's actually the gospel. So now you got the law to seek the gospel. It's a paradox. My brain explodes. It's the wrong way to talk about what the Bible says. It's the right way to point out someone's trying to justify themselves. So if you got someone who's like, you need to seek the kingdom with all your heart or you won't be saved. Okay, dude, you just confused law and gospel there. Okay. But to see that seek ye first the kingdom is Jesus' encouragement to believe in the gospel. And that believing the gospel isn't about what you're able to do. Our confessions are so clear on this. The Bible's so clear on this that for you to believe the gospel, the Holy Spirit has to regenerate you. It's a gift. You've gotten it. So now you get to seek the gospel, seek the kingdom, because God's doing it for you, which is, go figure, actually gospel at the end of the day. That he's promised to you, that he's called you out of darkness into his marvelous light, and all of your efforts, which are but filthy rags by themselves, are now redeemed by the blood of Jesus to be acceptable in his sight. So you please him, rightly so, with your works. So do them. Seek the kingdom and stop worrying about whether it's law or gospel as you seek it. Love the Bible. Chase Jesus. Praise his name. The question, is that law or gospel, guts the text. It guts it. It steals its capacity to just inspire you to want more Jesus.
Exactly.
Which is what Jesus is going to do in you by the word, even though technically, I guess you could say it's law if you really want to bastardize what it means. So, thank you, Stephanie, for that little foil to play with there. I'm not against law and gospel. I am against what most people mean when they say law and gospel these days. I love what our confessions say about it. I think we should read those often. People don't. They argue and argue and argue, and then they read it once in college. Come on. And the third use all the more. Anyone who starts talking about the third use is almost always, the next thing they say is not what the confessions say about third use.
And by third use, truly it is doing good for good's sake, because it is good. Yeah. Right? I have an understanding, a proper understanding. Okay.
Yeah, you're inspired to do it. As opposed to curbed into doing it. You're doing it against your will. Now you're doing it because it is your will.
It's like, and so therefore, it seems to me like these arguments are just stealing the Christian freedom.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, that's what the radical Lutherans would say, actually. It's interestingly, they're trying to preach the freedom.
I see.
Yeah, because the person who's saying third use isn't talking about how the law. They're saying, most people are going to bring up third use are trying to say that at the end of the sermon there needs to be, after you say law, which condemns, and gospel, which saves, now there needs to be a section about what you're supposed to do. And that's what they mean by third use. And since you've heard the law and the gospel, meaning the second use and forgiveness of sins, before this, now, when you hear what you're supposed to do, you will be inspired.
Okay.
It's like
robot land.
Yes. It is sophistry. It is sophistry is the pretension of philosophy. It's false wisdom. It is trying to do like love by mathematical equation.
Yeah.
And as much as I love math, you can't calculate love. It's not the result of calculus. So, yeah. It's 12:30.
Okay.
We have talked a long, good time. I hope y'all have enjoyed getting us riled up out there.
I was thinking about that, and as I was watching you get animated, I was like, that's the man version of my tears. oh my goodness, like we have demonstrated the difference between men and women this morning. I cry, you
Get angry.
get angry and yell.
Get zealous.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, no, I think anger is oftentimes given a bad rep because, it's not
It's a
not
godly attribute.
sinful to be angry or frustrated or it's what you do in that state.
It's how your sin corrupts the anger, and how then you tend to, when you're angry, take on a belief that you are God more quickly. and so without the curb, again, without the law to teach us who to be, we would abuse and misuse that anger, which again, you find this underneath all of these little debates about theology and how we're so right and pure. You can see a lot of misbehavior on both sides. You just see a lot of, and that's, again, it's like, come on, like that's why we're dying, is we're filled with hate.
Yeah, it's like before you go onto the internet to chat with anybody about any debate on anything, just pray Psalm 133. Give that one a good go round.
Brothers dwelling together in unity.
Yeah,
God bless
behold,
hymns.
how
Oil
good
on
and
the-
how pleasant it is for brethren to dwell together in unity.
Oil on the beard of Aaron.
It's like the precious oil upon the head, running down on the beard of Aaron.
Aaron couldn't have a beard. His wife made him shave. She didn't like.
She was prickly.
She didn't like kissing him that way. If you got questions and you want us to take them on, RevFisk, RevFisk.com/contact. You can send them our way. If you like what we do, we appreciate when you support us at patreon.com/RevFisk and Subscribestar or Subscribestar.com/RevFisk. You can find more about that if you want to help us out. Also, if you go to RevFisk.com. Stop the White Noise is brought to you by the Hebron Collegium, a gap year Bible school for men right here in Rockford, Illinois. Set your trajectory for righteousness, HebronCollegium.com, and Mad Christian Mondays. You can find out more about that amazing cultural diagnostic newsletter. Comes out every Monday at Mad PX. That's like the Cairo, but not Mad PXM. That's for Mondays.com. Oh, I have not mentioned today, Dr. Adam Coots, my partner on A Brief History of Power. You can find out more about that excellent podcast at abriefhistoryofpower.com. And as we talked about already today, the Sons of Solomon.net prayer discipline for now men and women with the Daughters of Wisdom booklet, hot off the presses, and the new version of the Sons of Solomon booklet with a little bit more about like, hey, why would you do this on the back cover?
So on the women's, I see it says heart and home on the back. What does the men's say on the back?
Why Sons of Solomon?
Oh, okay.
So the woman's back looks a lot like the men's back used to.
Okay.
But as soon as you open, you get a little more of a direction in the explanation. That the other one, why these psalms, it just jumps right into the discipline there. So you have more of a pitch on why. And also, Daughters of Wisdom, I mean, we're using Solomon's name, right? And a big part of this is pray the Proverbs every day. So this is more of the how do you pitch Proverbs discipline as a Christian reality that I guess it could have gone on here. It just didn't seem like it needed a place the same way in this document, but maybe in the next one.
Interestingly enough, yeah, you'll get feedback, I'm sure, because that's how we are as people. But women and men need different things, and so having packets that speak differently to each is a good thing.
And we went back to our second printing, changed the font on the Sons of Solomon. We went back to the original font, which I like a lot better. It's a little messier and all that. So you can get your copies of these for free. Just write into sonsofsolomon.net. It's .com. No, it's not. It's .net. It's that joke. It just never gets old for me. And of course, if you want to help out, you can pay for postage. We don't mind that at all, but we will ship them to you for free. That's about it. Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. You can read more about that in any of my books, but it definitely, what I'm about to say, comes from my book, Talk Them Into It. You can find that on Amazon. You can also find my book, Echo. We talked about that today. Broken, the original smash hit about blue hair and Star Wars. And Not blue hair like you find in the Star Wars movies now. I'm talking about blue hair like skateboarding. But anyway, and without
And if
flesh.
you want to transform the way you look at the Lord's Supper, definitely without flesh it's phenomenal. My favorite. I'm sorry.
So you know this super cool Lutheran rap artist? Super cool.
Yeah,
It's
what
probably
is
not-
his name?
Flame.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So Flame's been getting like bigger and better, I guess. I mean, I have not really. I don't like the computer enough to go find new music.
Sure.
Right? So I just live with the music I found 2 years ago. But Flame, I guess, is awesome, and I understand that he's very confessional Lutheran, and he raps about all sorts of stuff that's really truly biblically Lutheran.
Okay.
And he's getting like more media presence, a little more like show appearances, or he's got his own show and all this, and he's got a little studio set up, and in the studio that's set up right behind him, there's Without Flesh just sitting there. Now, to be fair, you got Martyr's Faith in a it's why American Christianity failed. It's sitting over on the other side. So you can never go very far, Jonathan Fisk, until you run into Brian Wolfmuller. This is
We
the truth.
love you, Brian.
We do. Flame considers Without Flesh to be, I think he called it, what was it? He'd said this in a different tweet somewhere.
Yeah, what did he say?
He called it stupid helpful. I think that was it. That book is stupid helpful.
Yeah. So
Which
good.
that for all you youngins out there, that's a nice thing, he said. Yeah. All right.
That's cool.
Jesus Christ is risen from the dead. This means you've been paid for. This makes you immortal now, and he's not going to be long anyway. The water seals it. The food feeds it. This is Christianity. You should join us. You found Stop the White Noise with Jonathan and Meridith. I am Jonathan.
And I'm Meredith.
Stop wallowing in the muck with those who have no hope, and join us. Lift up your heads all the more as you see the day approaching. Rock on and alleluia.